There we go. We are live. Welcome to Talking Crit. I am one of your hosts, your bartender in the OSR. I'm not even drinking. I can't talk. Eric Tenkar, and with me is my once a week work spouse, Bad Mike Battalato. And
Hello.
joining us at some random point in time when family obligations allow will be none other than the one, the only James Spahn.
Yeah, James has been popping into the comments, and we invited him to come on the show and actually talk. So he's going to try to come in when he can come in. It might not be till later, but he has an open invitation, so he will hopefully be in. And by the way, we have a couple guests locked down for next 2 weeks. So next week we're going to have Zach Glazer. I swear I thought we just had him on. I mean, the dude just he's testing our ability to like him by just popping on so often. And then the week after that, we're going to have Ben Barsh on the 30th. And because, our demographic's terrible, Eric. Our demographic's like old white man or just old men. And so we have to get that young, hip, cool crowd. We got to get those youngsters in here.
All right, so James just messaged me.
Okay.
And he was up until midnight with Sam, and Trixie has been up since 2 a.m. So,
oh my.
So he said not likely to happen, but I will hold out hope.
Shouldn't they be tired by now, though? That's what I'm saying.
He should be on his second win, right?
Yeah, he should be. They should be tired and sleeping, and he should be on his second win. He just needs to pop an energy drink and get on here. No, but he can pop on if he wants to. If not, we got plenty to talk about this week. The big thing we're going to talk about is it's weird. It's like the rumor zeitgeist just hit at the same time, so everybody's hearing the same rumors we are.
We got
rumor. A while back though.
Well, first off, what the rumor is something that I've been saying since the announcement of pretty much one D&D that Wizards of the Coast is going to look to find a way to harness all of that third-party publishing so they get a cut. And why is that? Because the DMs Guild does a good amount of business. They get a 30% cut from that. 20% goes to OBS, One Bookshelf. I'm sure they'd rather take out the middleman. Imagine if somebody would tell you that going into the future, you'll get half the money of every sale of a third-party product sold under your banner, and you have the number one banner in the industry. That's a pretty good way to sit in your ass and not get much going. So,
well, so the history of the OGL was created in 2000 for the 3E product, and you have to understand it was amazing because what it did was it let WotC not have to worry about creating product for their game, and that for somebody that knows a lot of stuff about how game companies work, that frees up a lot of creative hours that you don't have to create product. And for those of us who remember 3E, there wasn't just a little product; it was a lot of product. And for better or for worse, Ryan Dancy, who was the architect of the OGL, this is a genius move. This is an absolutely genius move because the popularity of D&D, which had gone down after 1E had been dumped and then had kept going down all during 2E, mostly because they stopped publishing for about 6 or 8 months while they had to negotiate the sale to WotC from TSR. It shot up in popularity. I mean, absolutely just blew the doors off because anybody could create their own D&D product and publish it. And as Eric probably remembers, anybody did. There was a huge glut of D20 product.
Well, and now you have to remember too, there were two things. There was the open game license, and then there was the D20 system license.
Right.
D20 that system was more restrictive, but allowed you to slap the D20 logo on your cover, and
right.
That was big back then.
Yeah, the OGL. So, I mean, the OGL indirectly led to Pathfinder. I mean, because that's what Pathfinder. They came from the fact that D&D or WotC dumped
Bump the
D&D and
OGL.
decided to publish 4E, which was a terrible idea because what they did was they attempted to license 4E product, and except for Goodman Games, pretty much no one bid, and it just kind of
Right.
their own product just couldn't match the. It just was terrible. It's a terrible idea.
Well, the 4E had the game system license, so there was no SRD. And if you wanted to publish for 4E, you had to pay a one-time fee. And I no longer recall if it was $1,000 or $5,000, but it was meant to keep out the riffraff.
Sure, because they're for. I mean, let's not lie about this. There was a lot of really crappy 3E product because it was open season. Everybody was dumping out whatever idea. I mean, I've got some 3E stuff that's absolute just plain flat out garbage because that's what happened. Anybody that had an idea said, "Hey, I can make some money and publish this as 3E," and they did. And at a certain point, great game stores had this gigantic glut of product. I remember my friendly local game store about 2005 or 6 had a giant sale where they brought out boxes from the back and they had modules for $0.25. I'm serious, $0.25 for 3E, for like old 3E stuff from like companies you've never heard of, here, there, and everywhere. Some old AEG stuff and Fast Forward Games, and I mean all those companies just really never never really survived.
Folks, for those of you who did not live through this era, you're not gaming through this era. Admittedly, I was not gaming, but I was still collecting. I was still buying. After the, and it reminds me of when I was a kid. You had the DC explosion, followed by the DC implosion.
Implosion, yes.
This was a D20 explosion, and then once the market got saturated, it literally fell in on itself. And on eBay, I ordered a box. I think I paid almost as much in shipping as I did for the box. I think it was 3 dozen Fast Forward Entertainment FFE products, and these were all hardcover books. Even if they were 32 pages long, they were a hardcover book. I remember it was a summer day, and I'm in my backyard, and I'm going through this, and as I pick this stuff up and I leaf through it and realize how thin this hardcover book is, I had the keep pile and the discard pile. For 36 books, I paid about $1 a book. I probably paid, even back then, like, I don't know, $15, $20 in shipping. My keep pile was one. I couldn't even tell you what that was. Everything else immediately went into the garbage. And I was like, wow, lesson learned. And I don't blame the people at FFE, and some of them are, if you look at the names, you recognize them. I'm not going to mention them because I don't want to embarrass them at this point. It's about 20 years past this fiasco. But the market was supporting them, putting out a book on one fucking ring. One magic ring. I think the font was like my old man eyes would love it now. The font was like a 24 font. It was great to read, but not to actually read. Just it was gentler on the eyes. So that was part of the issue. And also on top of that, here's this huge glut. And guess what? Wizards of the Coast wasn't getting a cut of the money. Wow. So when 4E came along and a game system license where they would get a cut of the money, nobody bought. So now they had to make content. So 4E is the reason why there's a lot of the light content game from professional publishers because very few jumped in.
Yeah.
Even Joe Goodman Games, their Level Up magazine, I believe, only lasted 2 issues.
Joe Goodman was so he would never say this, and this is pure speculation. He was so because his Dungeon Crawl Classics did really well for a while because it was 3rd edition rules, 5th or 1st edition feel or whatever, and he published 50 products, and they did really well. They had old school covers, old school artists, old school writers, even though it was 3rd edition product. And then they did 4E, and nobody bought any of it. He was so disillusioned. He went back to the drawing board and started Dungeon Crawl Classics, his own system. I think he sat there and decided he was never going to be beholden to somebody else's system ever again. And so he created his own system, Dungeon Crawl Classics, and has gone on since then. And said, never publish. I know they do publish some 5e stuff, his company, but he's not beholden to any system anymore.
Right. So now with 1D&D coming up, and I was mentioning this right from the start. I was saying they're going to want to take a larger cut of these third-party publications, especially the ones that are just not in the DM's Guild. How much of the stuff is published by everybody else, by Frog God Games, Troll Lord Games? Everybody's taking a cut of the 5e pie, and they're not getting their slice. They're not getting. So I was saying, and lo and behold, we've been hearing rumors for a bit, but Mike and I can certainly say we heard grounded rumors that we can trace back to a likely source, and yes, it looks like 1D&D will change just enough that backwards compatible to 5e theoretically, but it'll change just enough that the current SRD, which is what the current OGL covers. Now, remember, when you got 5e, did you have an OGL initially? You did not have an OGL for, I think it's like 15 months. And why is that? Because I believe Wizards of the Coast firmly believed that the OGL was leaving money on the table. They did not want to leave money on the table. They wanted all that money for themselves. And then after 15 months, which means probably after a year, they finally, told the powers that be, Hasbro, listen, this isn't working out. We're not getting material out there to support this game. We need to get material out there to support this game. And the way it is now, that means third-party publishers. And we need an OGL. And we need an SRD. And the initial excuse was, well, you got the basic games. You don't need that. You can play it for free. The OGL is not about playing stuff for free. The SRD is not playing stuff for free. The OGL and the SRD are about supporting the game system that you like and the ability to publish for it if you so desire within those parameters. So, but the DM's Guild kind of closes that gap. You get to play in their sandbox. What does the DM's Guild give you that the SRD and the OGL does not? It gives you IP that they claim rights to, whether it's settings, you want to write in a setting, or whether it's beholders and other creatures that are verboten. You get to use them because you're playing under a different license. So, do you think that 1D&D is going to have an OGL out of the box? No. 5e wasn't supposed to. 5e only got it because the publishers and the masses spoke up. So what Mike and I are hearing, and like I said, we can source this. I'll probably talk about this again tomorrow or Friday on just a small video about it. Maybe if we track down a few more things. But the game plan appears now is that, 1D&D, D&D 5. Infinity, again, never to be changed again. It's not gonna come out under an OGL. It's gonna come out under an SRD, but it's not an SRD for you and me. Now, I don't know for sure if they. Well, I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure they're not going to do the 4E route of, hey, sign a license and pay me $5,000 and then you can publish, because that's not a way to make infinite monies. They want to make infinite monies. And I've said this before, and I will say this again. I firmly believe that when 1D&D launches, they are going, and I don't think they're going to want to create their own new community for these products. I think they're going to want to take the DM's Guild, and they're going to go from, hey, listen, we're going to pay you outright. One bookshelf, we'll give you $5 million, $10 million. We get all the rights. We get everything from it. We get all the profits. Maybe we'll pay you a monthly fee to run the site as a database, whatever, as a sales portal, but we keep all the sales monies. And if you want to write for one D&D, there you go.
So I have several thoughts on this. First of all, this reeks so much of middle management consultants going, wait a second, we're leaving so much money on the table, and somebody's saying, but we tried this before. No, shut up. We're going to do it this way because our charts show we can make X amount of money. And Eric and I have been looking at this for the last year or two. They've been consolidating for a while. They've been pulling everything under one banner, and they've definitely been planning for this. This didn't just happen. This has been going on for a while, and it's been slowly working towards this. So they know what they're doing. They've been planning this a long time, and somehow, somewhere, the company itself has decided, look, we're leaving too much money on the table by not having, I don't know for better or worse, a subscription-based type model or a license-based model. And we need to get into the business of nickel and diming people to death with transaction fees and all this other stuff. It's interesting because so D&D has never done this before. Now other companies have done the hell out of this. I mean, there's other companies, they've done this forever. I mean, video companies have done this. EA Sports, they're Madden games. You have to pay for players unless you play the solo game. If you get online, you have to buy players. I mean, it's a transaction-based economy in a lot of these games, and that's not just Madden. That's a lot of other online video games. So video games have been doing this for a while. It's going to be interesting to see how it does with the world's largest role-playing game, because although smaller companies may have done things like this, WotC's never done anything like this. The problem is that, and I've always said this before, this reminds me of when somebody years ago, this is years and years ago, said comic book writers and artists weren't being paid enough, and they needed to go on strike, and they became form a union and go on strike. And then I think it was John Byrne, the famous X-Men artist, laughed and said, what are they going to strike against? 50 years of reprints? Because, the day they go on strike, Marvel Comics just starts reprinting Fantastic Four from issue number 1. Okay, we're going to just do reprints for a couple years now. Oh, by the way, we're going to hire some new artists and writers too. So that's the whole thing. You have almost 50 years of D&D product. And everybody knows the great thing about D&D product is you don't need anything besides the rules. You don't need anything else. You really don't. You just need the rules, dice, and a pencil and a piece of paper. That's it. You don't need anything else to play the game. So they're going to have to offer content that's worth purchasing, which I think when they go the VTT route, that's going to be the product they're going to be pushing. Is that you can't play the game using VTT without our services. But it just seems like a huge. I see Rob's on a classic rant. Maybe we should let Rob on. Rob's ranting. I love Rob on a rant, man. There's very few things I like better than Rob on a rant, and Rob is on a rant. This looks like. See if Rob wants to jump on. If Rob wants to jump on, he's welcome to jump on and rant with us.
Rob, we know you're listening. If you want to jump in,
he's just saying because
the server.
This is what they tried to do with 4E, and it failed miserably. And they don't have time to create all this extra product. And so that's the whole point of the OGL is you're not creating product. For example, Far God Games, we come out with probably half a dozen to a dozen products a year using 5E and using the OGL. That's so they don't have to. So, and that's just us. There's a lot of other companies that, like, Greg Gillespie's done his Mega Dungeons series. He does a 5E version of all those. I mean, and goes on. I mean, Skeeter Green does 5E versions of his stuff. I mean, everybody does a 5E version because it's the world's, best-selling role-playing game. How will it affect this? As my thing, my issue with it is, you can still do original 5E. You can't throw 5E in there and say, well, you can't do 5E anymore. If they issue a license for, let's say, D&D Beyond, D&D 1, whatever you want to call it, that still leaves original / classic 5E available. There he is, Mr. Rant. I know a good rant. I can smell a good rant when I smell it, and so we're ready to let you rant, brother.
Sorry, I realized I had the video on, so I was getting a time delay echo, and it was very odd. Yeah, I wasn't expecting to be on night. It just came up on my feed, and I thought, oh, let's hear what James Spahn had to say. And here you are talking about one of my favorite things I like to rant about.
Well, because for those that don't know, Rob is someone who has studied the community contracts at One Bookshelf. He's the one that was the first one to point out to me that your content, once in their environment, once in that community, not only can't leave, but a variation of it, like for another system, can't leave either. It's locked in. So I'm going to say something that Rob is going to probably mention. If Frog God were to publish under those rules in the DM's Guild today, they couldn't publish that same adventure for one OSC or Castles and Crusades,
right?
Or
and that's well known in the community. I mean,
well,
there's a lot of
wait a minute. There is a caveat.
Oh, there is.
It's not going to happen with the DM's Guild. If you contact the administrator of the program, you can ask permission. So I know the Zweihander, what's his name, Daniel Fox, he has given permission for people. Yeah, I don't care, just as long as your Zweihander product only stays on the Zweihander community content product. I don't care if you write it for some other system. Like the example he used was Legends. Oh, hold on. Not now, Jamie.
I switched to the 3700X because the CPU I want runs really hot, and I don't want to burn like a deer around.
Okay, Jeremy. I said we'll talk about this later. Thank you.
So we got computer device there. Well, I mean, yeah, but Watsy's not going to do that though. Watsy's not going to let you publish for other companies.
But I just want to let those who are listening in know that even though only Genesis has it spelled out in their license agreement that your Genesis product has to stay on their program, but you can rewrite it for any other system you want, but not claiming the derivative rights like the other one do. Other programs have different, their administrators have different views, i.e. the company who's running it. Mm-hmm. So just contact the program before, if you want to publish for another system, just contact the program administrator, and they may say yes. They don't really care. I'm pretty much sure that the Hero System people have the same attitude.
But like for instance, Alex Kamer and Ed Greenwood just published a Red Wizards of Thay supplement using the D&D Beyond or whatever rules there are there. They're never going to get permission to publish that for any other system. That's only.
Well, it's locked.
No, I agree with you. Wizard, any of the bigger corporation will probably just say no.
Yeah,
but
so they're not going to get permission, even though it was an official WotC product. It's their product, but it was published under the rules. But people know that going in. They know that going in. Look, when we do it this way, we don't hold the rights to it anymore, except for as 5e. I mean, unless you're really stupid. I mean, you know that going in, right? I mean, that's just part of it.
Well, they know now because we've been talking about it.
They better know. They better figure it out.
We're not special. I mean, it's been all over enough in other places. But here's the thing that I don't think people are considered about the changes for 1D&D, whether it has an OGL or not. Okay, so at the end of the day, it comes down to Wizard commissioning a project, getting the writing done, getting the art done, getting the layout done, and then publishing it. And it seems to me, that's just like, an army. You can have this outstanding general for an army, but if the logistics aren't there, you're going to lose the freaking war. So the question is, I right now in the recent run for the last 3 or 4 products, I'm not seeing the logistics for bringing it all in house. They may do it store wise, but and like you saw, they're pulling in license and stuff. But to being able to actually produce products that are good, that people want to play, I'm not seeing that.
No.
I
mean, who's going to write these products? I mean, that.
Well, not only that, Rob. The last, we've it's become it's a fact now because WotC's released their last quarter, and the last quarter would absolutely suck balls. But their last few products haven't made money. Spelljammer, Strixhaven. What was the other one? The Wilding Wood of something. I don't know.
I'd rather
Well,
not.
Spelljammer is a good example because it's not quite. I mean, creatively, as a concept, it could be good or bad, but Spelljammer had serious. I guess I don't have a term for it. Logistic problem as an RPG product. I mean, here is Spelljammer. We know what the original box set came with, all the rules that it covered.
Right.
As far as I understand, when I glanced through the Spelljammer, it didn't cover a quarter of what the original. There's no
and reviewers pointed that out, Rob. Reviewers have pointed that out. That's a horrible way to market your product. But hey, we have a game with spaceships in space, but we're not really going to include any rules for spaceships in space. For ships in space, what? Just use whatever rules you want. Just do whatever you want, and that's the biggest give up ever. And that's the reason you purchase a product like Spelljammer is you want to see how ship combat in space happens. And and for what all the reviewers are saying, that's not in the book. It's just they hand wave it. Oh, just do whatever you want to do, and it's
Yeah, I mean that stuff that there could have been the greatest thing since the invention of sliced bread, but without all the rather necessary bits and pieces for what they were trying to cover. I
don't know what's in there. I mean, the books are this thick, and I haven't opened it yet. If there's no ship-to-ship combat, what the hell's in the books? I mean, there's got to be something. I mean, just talk about planet creation.
Well, apparently there's
got to be something in there.
That wasn't a slave that weren't from slavery before, but now are.
well, we take all the slavery out. That's 2 pages of stuff. We still there's that much.
You had to add in fake history that didn't exist prior, where even the original author of Spelljammer, who actually put that race in initially back in 2E, was like, why the fuck are they blaming my generation for putting that stuff in?
That was a slap in the face to Steve Winter and all the other creatives at TSR, the way that they've, not just this product, but all the products, because I don't know if did you see the announcement that came out about the errata? They've already published errata for Spelljammer for the next printing. Spelljammer. You haven't seen this? Oh, I got to send you this. So they already have Monty Cook published an apology thing and said, we're sorry, and here's all the errata. And they said, by the way,
Monty Cook was involved in getting that out?
Was it Monty Cook? Or was it Chris Perkins? It was Perkins.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Now, Monty Cook, what the hell am I talking about? No, it's Chris Perkins.
Yeah. Thank you.
Let me find it. So anyway, he published an apology page, and he also published, and in there, it also said that not only are we correcting all these problems, but we reserve the right to correct any product ever published, including original products that we didn't publish under WotC. So what he's saying is we can go into G1, and if we don't like the way it's written, we're going to republish it, and it's going to be published the right way or the way we want it to be. So yeah, they've gone beyond just
1984 anyone, and I'm not saying it's on a political level. I'm just saying that you're going to go back and change original source material to reflect what I guess. I guess they, listen. I guess current rules of conduct socially change. So if it changes again in 10 years, I guess they can go back and change what they already changed for having to change the change.
I'm going to read you one of the.
The thing is about most of those products stems from the late 70s, early 80s, and while we were aware of a racism back then. This was on the tail end of the whole civil rights era, and it's not like people were just ignoring this stuff. I mean, people were aware of racist content, and growing up, I mean, I've run into, stuff that rolled my eyes, but TSR was pretty tame compared to what I've seen other role-playing products do.
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna read one of the press releases, or I sent you a link to this, and this is just a link to the original. So Dungeons & Dragons has slightly reworked its process for designing books in an attempt to catch potentially insensitive material before it heading to the printers. Chris Perkins, senior story designer at Wizards of the Coast and frequent face of D&D, posted a blog on November 10th, so about a week ago, to the D&D Beyond website outlining inclusion reviews and how it will improve the company's future releases. This change was necessitated by the inclusion of 2 glaring instances of culturally insensitive to explicitly racist material printed in the Spelljammer's Adventures in Space book. Fans and players, especially within the Black community, criticized a description of the simian Hadozi that trucked in harmful real-world beliefs regarding eugenics and slavery. Additionally, artwork of a Hadozi bard closely mirrored historical minstrel shows in the U.S. I didn't see that. Boy, somebody has a link to that. Please show me. I have not seen that yet.
I did see that. We had it.
Is it pretty bad? Is it bad, or is it just like?
You know what? It's an unforced foul. Okay. I could see both sides. One side going, no, not really. That side going, yeah, really. And if you look at it, yeah, really.
You probably shouldn't even have that. Yeah, when in doubt, just don't include it. Yeah.
Let's put it this way. If I was doing a book and somebody had this idea, hey, Rob, I got this idea for a picture, and they showed me that picture, I would have said, no, we're not doing this. Yeah. I want to make a big deal of it, but we're not doing this.
The article goes on to say that the new inclusion review process will affect all future releases as well as reprints, starting with the fresh batch of books from the Spelljammer box set. Okay, I need to stop right here. Time out, please. They're not reprinting this piece of shit.
No.
They're selling. I told you my saga of how it went on sale, and I was so excited to get it 30% off. And if you look right now on Amazon, it's 50% off. They're not reprinting and selling this turd. This turd is they're saying that so everybody will be happy and excited. Okay, and maybe they'll issue one print run of like 100 books just to say they did it. But no, this is a turd that didn't make any money. They're not reprinting this piece of garbage.
By the way, I have the table of contents if you want to break it down. Yeah, it's 15.
Well, hold on. Let me finish this, Rob. We'll do that. While cultural consultancy was normally carried out at the discretion of product leads, Wizards of the Coast is testing a new structure whereby cultural consultants will review the material at several points during production, including at least once during text creation, art creation, the final review. Cultural consultants will then hand the reports to the studio's leadership to create a plan for implementing the feedback. And it goes on and on. So here's the part that I want to get to about everything is going to be reviewed by cultural consultants. It's unclear whether these consultants will be considered freelancers, contract workers, or something more permanent. Perkins seems hopeful the inclusion review process will stop culturally insensitive and racist material from the jump, removing the onus of flagging obvious misses from the player base. I'm looking for the part where Chris said that let me see if I can find his. You go ahead and go on, Rob. I'm going to try to find Chris's original comment about how we reserve the right to go back and correct anything we want to.
So they have 15. They have 9 pages of character options. This is the 64-page book.
All right.
9 pages of character option. They have. I do the math here. 32 pages of everything else. How air envelopes work, how gravity plane work, how the astral plane work, how magic spell. They have 1 page of notes on magic. They have 2 pages of ship rules. And then they have 1 page each for like the Damselfly ship, the Flying Fish ship, the Hammerhead ship. They have about looks about 15 ships there, each with a page, and I'm pretty sure if I remember, they all have a deck plan with it. So there are decks with them, and then they detail a setting called the Rock of Brawl.
Right, that's from the original. That's original setting from the.
And they have that 8 pages of that. And it is chock full of art, chock full of maps, which is usually a good thing. But, that means the actual wordage, it's very minimal. And this is nothing, this doesn't have the heft that the original box set had, which had stuff on how to explain how to make Spelljammer work with Greyhawk, Terrell, and all the other TSR settings that they had going at the time. And
Is this a hardcover book or was this a soft cover in the box? I mean, 'cause if this is a hardcover book, I'm really
The box set came. There's a screen in there, and I want to say 2 or 3 other books in there that I believe are hardcover, but I'm not positive. It's a heavy. It's I haven't opened mine yet. It's very heavy. But like I said, it's huge. I can't believe they don't have any rules for ship combat.
Yeah, they do.
But
it's 2 pages, and how.
Oh, okay. So there you go. Okay.
2 pages. Well,
Yeah.
I'm sure half of which are graphs and.
Well, the reviewers say the pretty much like, hey, you just do what you want, man. Go for it, brother. Like, I'm not paying you to tell me to do what I want. I'm paying you to give me an idea what I need to be doing.
You know, it's painful, but my understanding. I don't think it's out yet, but the Dragonlance is going to be more of the same. It's less about the setting, it's more about the trappings, and people are saying it's like, all right, well, yeah, it's Planescape, but you can drop anything into it, or you can drop it into anywhere. It's going to be like it's Dragonlance, but you know, it can be on Earth, it can be on Faerun, it can be, you know, you could drop it right next to Waterdeep if you wanted to. I mean, that's just 3 hardcovers and a DM screen in a slipcase. When in our generation of D&D players did a 64-page book ever become a hardcover? That's just that's literally fake pages in your thickness of that book. You know, come on, that's
So the hardcover, I think what the gentleman's talking about there's a DM screen with Spelljammer art on the one side. Then there's an actual adventure for a Spelljammer, and then there's a monster book. And then the third book is the book I just described to you. I'm looking on Amazon right now and seeing what the contents are. Yeah. But,
anyway, so we're a little bit off the subject, but this is all related to the fact that look, WotC has not put out a bunch of winners lately, and coupled with the regular news that Magic has lost 8 to 10% of its market share. And the fans are pissed off about this.
Magic and shit the bed. Magic has caused
absolutely
Hasbro
shit the
to
bed.
lose. It caused Hasbro's targeted price to drop like 40%.
$1,000 for a reprint of
$999.99.
okay, $999.99.
So explain what this is. Somebody explain this.
Reprint of the original card that are not tournament legal because they're printed with a different card backing.
But you're not guaranteed to get those cards, though, Rob. That's the funniest part. It's random.
This will buy you 4 booster packs that are randomized.
Yep.
So you can spend $1,000 for 4 random booster packs that might not include a rare card that you can't use at tournament play anyway. Has there ever been a more useless product except for the original Castle Greyhawk, the Funhouse Castle Greyhawk? I don't know. That this might be one of the most useless products of all time ever. Hey, I just spent $1,000 to get it, and I got a fake Black Lotus I can't use anywhere.
So this leads to this leads to my question: is where is the staff that's going to be producing this content that they're busily consolidating their sales logistics for?
So Rob, who else is who? I know Eric's worked for Eric's worked for Police Force, which is kind of a big corporation. I've worked for a few big corporations. Let me tell you something. This stakes so much of middle management consultancy because so the best definition I ever heard about consultants was consultants are like pigeons. They fly in, they crap all over everything, and they leave. And I've worked for 2 or 3 companies over the years that they'd have these consultants come in, they'd give us this, what they thought was great advice, and we'd implement the changes for anywhere from 6 months to a year. Then we'd go back to the old ways of doing things because their suggestions were frankly shit. And so this has the trappings of somebody came in and said, you need to be making more money off all your products. They didn't think about what you're talking about, Rob. They didn't think about, we're going to need all these people to do this. No, they just say, look, here's what we're going to do. And we're going to make, and then blah, 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 profit. We're going to make all this money out of it. And nobody has thought about the nuts and bolts of this thing. Now, they still have 2 years to work their way through this, right? I mean, the anniversary is until 2024.
But you're assuming that Wizards of the Coast plans on making the content. They don't. Wizards of the Coast plans on licensing those rights, likely through either the DM's Guild or something similar under their total control. So you want to come in, just like now, if you want to play in the Forgotten Realms, you got to play in their market and give them half your sales. If you sell it for $5, they're getting $2.50 of every sale for doing nothing but giving you the privilege. They want the same thing for 1D&D. Yes, Frog Eye Games, you can publish, sure, but we get half the profit. So now, guess what? And you know what that kills, right? That kills print, right? That kills because actually you're getting half the cover price in PDF. What's the share going to be of a print product? They don't care because they don't want to be dealing with print stuff anyway. Also, I would assume if they can sell it in their own market, then they can say, hey, and it's integrated in D&D Beyond and in our VTT. Isn't this great? It should help you sell more. You shouldn't be upset that you're losing 50% on the dollar. You should be happy that you're making money off of our IP. I guarantee you, this is the talk that went on with the Wizards.
And that sounds, you know what it sounds like? A dumbass consultant middle manager.
Has
no clue about how it works. Has no clue about how it really works, but just thinks that, this is like any other company he's consulted for. And yeah, they're leaving money on the table, man. They're leaving all this money on the table. You shouldn't leave this money on the table. You can do this.
Hearing you guys talk, it just occurred to me what one of the things that middleman can be saying. So imagine this. So they have a creative staff cut to the bare bones, okay? And
right now.
And it's Chris Perkins, one of the people behind it. Did I get that name right?
Yes, Chris Perkins is still there.
And who's the other guy? There's Chris Perkins and who else?
Winnegar's gone. Merle's is like a figurehead at this point. I don't know really how influential he is.
It's not germane. So one D&D is published, which is essentially Chris Perkins' house rules for 5e, and they make that official, and they do this consolidation, this digital marketplace, buy out D&D 5e, but they don't really release products. Instead, they're like, okay, we built the operating system, i.e. the iPad, and now we sell it. We set up our app store, and you can make our adventures. You can make our supplement. We'll take our cut. It can only reside here. You can't do anything else but sell the digital content. And they'll probably even do the same with the VTTs, with the 3D set. They'll try to entice 3D modelers to say you could sell your set here using Wizards IP to decorate it however you like, and as long as you give our 50% or whatever they charge. And but they don't really do much in the way going forward with print, or maybe they find that really good adventure somebody made and say they cut him a deal, and that will be their print release for the quarter.
No, that's interesting, Rob. But again, it's going to be a huge change on the current 5e marketplace for the third-party publishers, where now, they get their profit margins are figured out by what are our costs, our expenses, and now it's going to be, all right, we'll take 30% off the top, or 40%, or 50%, and then what do we have to do to be profitable? Now, it could be that they're going to also try to sell the DM's Guild 2.0 as, well, if you sell it. We have stats to show you that if you sell in the DM's Guild, you will sell 1.5 times the amount of product that you would have sold if you were just selling it on your own shingle on drive-through. We will give you a better sales numbers, and in the long run, you'll make more money as you feed the beast. And I Wizards of the Coast right now, 1D&D is going to change just enough where, in theory, yes, if you wrote something for 5e, it will be compatible-ish with 1D&D. Pretty much like 2e and 1e were mostly compatible. It just got a little confusing.
Yeah, well, there's a way around. I mean, at least I think, unless I'm
but it's just not going to be
missing something, there's a way around it.
But
and that's just to say, if you're a third-party company that you're publishing classic 5e or original 5, you say, oh, we're going to do original 5e, classic 5e. Just take the version, the rule books that came out 4 or 5 years ago, base your game off that. It's as Eric said, it's probably going to be compatible with D&D Beyond, D&D 1, D&D Next, whatever. And you're going to avoid having to pay all that crap. Now, I understand some people are going to want to put out the latest and greatest version of 5e, but there's going to be lots of workarounds. I mean,
and then the thing is there's going to be some guy or some lady or guy who's going to be ornery enough to make a clone of 1D&D using the 5e OG,
sure.
SRD, and then of course Wizard, if their management continue to be the way they've been acting, their first instinct is cease and desist. The individual involved is going to say, "Screw you, no," and it's going to have a chilling effect for a year or two. But this guy, I bet you, this person is going to fight it out. And they might not even try to settle with Wizard. They say, no, we want our day to court because Wizard does not want.
Wizards doesn't want to go to court with this.
Yeah, they don't want to court. They don't want precedent set on their IP.
Yeah.
No.
Right.
Now, there's some good comments here. Alpha Investments is an excellent channel. If you've never watched it, and they're especially interesting right now because they are talking about the amount of money that WotC's losing on Magic. I watched an episode. These guys are on the money. They're very intelligent guys. They approach it as a business. And they talk about it. Hasbro, what Gunn said, if they promise the board profits, this reeks of that coming in because. So I worked for a company. I can probably say it doesn't matter. It's been called LabCorp. Did drug testing. They're still around, and they had all kinds of ridiculous business shit. They had consultants come in all the time, but the consultants were really famous for coming in and promising things they couldn't deliver. And we knew. Why did we know they couldn't deliver? Because I've been working there 20 years and I've seen it happen 5 times.
Right.
And I knew it's not going to happen. And so they come and they go, oh, we have this new system we're going to implement for your drivers. And it's going to do this. It's going to be amazing. And I'd be like, roll. And sure enough, we'd implement it for 6 months. It would suck balls, and then we go back the other way. And so I have no doubt that somebody has probably promised, if we do this, we're going to make X amount of profit, money, whatever, and they're all excited about this, and it hasn't been tested yet. I mean, it may succeed, it may not, but nobody knows.
Well, it happened in my industry. I write software for metal cutting software, and my company has been battling for basically the number one position in our narrow niche. It's a very specific type of metal cutting machine, but the guy that the company that we're up against was been there a long time, and they're far more established, and they were bought out by a conglomerate, so they had capital behind them to do whatever they want. So their bright idea a few years back was to outsource all their manufacturing to China, and they were able to drop their prices accordingly. And then a year later, the other shoe dropped, which was service. All of a sudden, they were backlogged. Something broke down. You had to wait a month or 2 to get the part you needed. And trivial. There were certain parts that were trivial for them, but the important, like your drives or something physically broke on your machine, all of a sudden they couldn't service, and just complaints skyrocketed. And then that's when our order skyrocketed, and we took the number 1 place. And I guess from what sales been telling me, we kept it ever since. They're still nipping at our heels, but it's just, and they had to take back the manufacturing back to the United States.
unintended consequences. I mean, look, at one point, almost every single third-party game company, a lot of first-party game companies were doing business in China because the rates were cheaper for printing in China. Everything was cheaper there. Then came the pandemic. After the pandemic, guess what? People aren't printing in China anymore. Why? Because they got screwed. Because during the pandemic, they had to delay shipments here. There was some Kickstarters that were delayed a year and a half because the product was literally sitting in giant barges just waiting to go somewhere. And once people were burned like that, and it's because so the whole thing about getting a Kickstarter is not just fulfilling the Kickstarter. You've already got that money, right? That money's already in the bank. You got that money. Yes, you may have a pissed off customer or two, but you just tell them, look, this isn't our fault. It's a pandemic. It's in the pipeline, whatever. The problem is you can't sell that product, the extra product, because when you print, let's say you have a Kickstarter, you sell 5,600 copies. It's usually cheaper for you to print 6,000, 7,000, whatever. So you're printing 6,000 or 7,000, hoping to sell those extra copies, and you get it all printed at the same time. The problem was these companies, that what they got caught at is that they couldn't sell those extra copies because extra copies are on the barge or on the boat with the regular copies. So it wasn't the Kickstarter people, because I had a few Kickstarters that were really late, and I knew why, and it didn't bother me. I mean, there's nothing you can do about it. It's in a ship stuck in the China harbor or whatever. But where the companies got screwed is they weren't making any money off this product. They'd already made the money off the Kickstarter, but they weren't making the extra money, if that makes any sense. And so a lot of these companies now they're doing business with domestic printers now. They're finding domestic printers because they can't trust that something like that wouldn't happen again. If it does, that would be a disaster for them to happen again. Now, the unintended consequences of this are not just one company, but many companies are looking for domestic printers. Well, there's only X amount of domestic printers out there, and there's only X amount that can, fulfill orders, a certain amount of orders. So now you're having a problem with domestic printers. Domestic printers can't get their stuff out in time because now there's so many domestic printers out there being overtaxed by all the people who don't want to do business with China anymore. It's just really interesting, and nobody knows what's going to happen. Like I said, it's unintended consequences. You don't know what's going to happen. Nobody knows what's going to happen.
And this is hindsight, but the whole push throughout the 90s and the 2000s and the 2010 to just-in-time inventory, just-in-time manufacturing, we just didn't realize how much that relied on having an efficient shipping system. And the moment anything snarled that up, that just threw all your plans out of whack. I mean,
Yep. Mike stepped away, I believe, to turn off the alarm that was going on in the background. Let's see. We'll see if he can wander his way back. By the way, Mr. Gunn has a question for you, Rob. How many axes does your machine cut on?
Two. It's a flat. We cut flat plates of metal, and we sell to industries like HVAC and fabricator industry to have their part laid out as a flat pattern, and they bend it into the final form. A simple example is a box. You lay it out, it looks like a clover leaf, or looks like a four-way cross, and then you bend it up and then put seams on the corners. But if you look up on your ceiling and look at the heating or air conditioning, look at the ductwork that carries your air conditioning or heat, all of that was laid out on a flat piece of steel and cut out. If it was 30 years ago, they would have actually traced out in chalk the pattern and took a pair of stem snips and snipped it out. Yep. When the class of machines that I program for is one of the few examples of where the improvement in technology wasn't just twice as better, 3 times or better. It was 100 times better, at least to the point where you got the flat pattern. After that, that still hasn't changed. It has to be bent, fabricated together, and that still takes manpower. But before, they had an army of people just snipping and laying out these patterns, and they were limited in how much variation they could have. And now it's just a matter of punching in the numbers you want, and they'll figure out the patterns for you.
Interesting.
So
yeah,
I apologize, Zach.
And by the way, it didn't put. And I know there's a little off topic, but it didn't put people out of work. What happened is the companies that adopted this early on, they took on more work. and eventually wind up hiring more people because they were doing a bigger volume. They were able to do more jobs. And I guess the overall price either kept level. I think it never dropped, but it kept level for a lot longer than it should have because they were able to keep up. It didn't cost them as much to do an important step in installing these systems.
So, Mike, you're going to blame Zach on this?
I was going to blame Zach because he calls me he doesn't know I haven't done the show every Wednesday night for the past 2 years. So he said he's going to call me later, and I thought he meant like later, but apparently they can't tell time in Arizona, so I apologize for that.
Well, yeah, because they're the only place without like daylight saving, so they work on their own clock. That's my understanding.
Oh, I had to fix myself a drink because this conversation's getting rough.
Is it getting rough?
Got to bring out the Buffalo Trace. Yes.
I still haven't opened my bottle.
Oh, it tastes good. Oh, it's so good.
But now
I don't even know what we're talking about. I got
well,
lost track.
we went into the weeds. We always go into the weeds.
So we're talking about the shipping, how the shipping.
Oh yeah, the shipping. Yeah. But that's so to relate that back to what we're talking about. This is the stuff with WotC and everything. These things have unintended consequences. So what WotC's doing now, they don't really know what's going to happen. They don't. I mean, they don't, and we don't really know either. We're obviously just speculating, but they don't know what's going to happen. They've been told that if we do this, this, and this, we're going to make more money, and that's why you do something like this.
Right.
It remains to be seen. I think I had said this to somebody in the Discord. Hubris has been the downfall of many an empire, and if they think that they can do nothing wrong ever, because they've been on a long winning streak. They've been a 7-year winning streak, 8-year winning streak right now. When you're on that long of a winning streak, sometimes you lose the forest for the trees, and you're like, hey, we can't do anything wrong at this point. We're everything we do is just hitting a home run out of the park. I think 2022 was the first year that there was cracks in that armor because they've had a lot of products that didn't make money. Their Magic division seems to be having problems. Now, this could all, and I also made a comment in the Discord. Look, we don't know if this is recession, inflation related. People just don't have the amount of money to be spending money on stuff like this, or is this quality related? Is this just because they're putting out shitty products?
You also have and
they're not selling
post-COVID rebound of people who were trying to find methods of distraction and entertainment when they were locked down and had limited. Maybe you were playing Magic the Gathering with your family, and now you can go out. You don't need to play Magic. You can go out and see a movie. You go out to the bar. D&D is suffering a lot of that rebound too.
Well, there was a great article, and I still can't find the article. It was about they were talking about the fact that people can't find people to game with online anymore. For a while, it was when COVID started, everybody was at home. It was great. There was all these groups popping up. People were, there was bulletin boards where you could go find people to play. 5e had a forum where you could find other people play 5e. And then once things started getting back to normal, these groups started getting smaller and smaller. Then they stopped meeting every week. Then they stopped meeting every other week. They stopped meeting every month. And pretty soon these groups just kind of broke up and, went their own way because you could go outside again. You could play with your friends. You could go out to bars. Like Eric said, there's things you could do. Of all the companies that benefited from COVID, WotC benefited quite a bit. Their sales went through the roof during COVID because it was something fun to do. Some people that never played D&D were playing D&D. I had a lot of friends that I know that don't play role-playing games that were playing role-playing games during COVID. They were playing multiple games. They'd have 2 or 3 campaigns a week because a lot of them had nothing to do. A lot of them were just stuck at home. Some people didn't have jobs, and they were getting a payout from the government. They didn't have to work. There was no jobs to be had. Well, I'm going to play D&D 4 times a week, which I would have done too if I could have believed it. Now things back to normal. You don't have that.
So the question is, I don't think we're at a point where you can ignore the brick and mortar bookstores or in the case of Wizards, the Barnes and Nobles and stuff. I mean, digital is becoming far more important, way more important than it ever was. But can you really play at the level of, say, Pazio or Wizards and ignore the brick and mortar store? Because I think they want to, Rob.
I think we've discussed this actually because
Yeah.
Wizards has actually said, if you read between the lines, or actually read what they say and then read what they do, their future is about integrating everything. That's the physical product with the digital product through the D&D Beyond, with the VTT, which is going to mean like maps and tokens. And they're already showing it now. You can pre-order Dragonlance and get the digital content 2 weeks before the actual release of the physical copy. Now, this is their trying to see. This is their experimentation. This is their let's knock on this and see what falls out and what the problems are going to be before we try to do this with our release of our new game, where we do this with the core content. So Amazon doesn't sell it they might still sell it at a 33% loss, but if you want the digital content with it, if you want the D&D Beyond, because D&D Beyond is a subscription service, they want everybody on that. They want everybody on a paid level. They're willing to bundle it, and in reality, digital content, you can ramp up the amount of digital content you are selling without impacting your bottom line. Whereas physical content, you got to put out, you got to lay out money to make money. Digital, you can go from 1 copy to 10,000. The cost doesn't change the same. It doesn't matter after you've already made the content. So they don't care about the complete strategist. They don't care about brick and mortar like Barnes and Noble or Books A Million. They don't care about Amazon. Honestly, the only
you really think they're at the point where they can ignore selling on Amazon?
I think they can, Rob. I don't know if they can, but Eric and I both think this. We think they can.
I'll be honest with you. I think the only stores that they care about right now, if you actually spoke to them, are the Targets and the Walmarts, and if they could get themselves into a Costco and get a starter set in one of those stores, and they could sell it at cost, because that's giving away that first piece of crack at a low price and hopefully converting people. But you're never going to see modules or adventures at Walmart or add-ons at a Target. No, that you go there to find it, and then you go back to Woods of the Coast directly to buy more.
No, I think it's a little bit more nuanced than that. I think you go there to find the starter set, and the starter set leads you where you buy the core book. Because if I'm wrong, the core book.
That's it. They want you to buy it from Hasbro. They don't want you buying those core books from Barnes and Noble, because when they're selling it, they don't have to sell it at wholesale.
Well, no, that it's not just Barnes. No, they don't want you buying those books from Joe's Friendly Game Store. Right. They don't care about Joe's Friendly Game Store doesn't help them anymore. Joe's Friendly Game Store used to help them a long time ago. Their reach is so much more powerful now, and so much more. It goes out so much farther digitally. They don't care about Joe's Friendly Game Store. It literally doesn't matter to them. It doesn't matter about my local game store that's in my town, that's been around for 25 years. They're about to celebrate their 25th anniversary. They don't sell enough product for them to care about. They just don't care about them. They do millions more digitally and online. And so I think that
I'm thinking can they ignore Amazon? I mean, Amazon is Walmart does not dwarf Amazon. No. I mean they both Walmart, Target, and Amazon and Costco are all like on the same playing field, and they need physical products in their warehouses.
Right.
But unlike Walmart, Amazon actually does carry the core books, the adventures, and the stuff.
Oh yeah.
But I'll tell you a story though. So Gunn said, "Friend, World Game Stores in trouble. It's retail, face serious headwinds." Here's the deal though. Like anything else, they still provide something that you can't get anywhere else. And as long as they can provide this thing you can't get anywhere else, game stores will keep going on. And that is for gamers to face-to-face meet with other gamers. And I'll give you an example. I was I think I told the story a few months ago. I was in my favorite hamburger shop, and the waitress came up, and she noticed I always wear T-shirts that have D&D stuff on it. She said, "I just want to know, do you know anything about D&D? Because I see you have the shirts." I said, "Yeah, I help run a convention. I do this and that, blah, blah." She's like, "Well, I want to learn how to play D&D. How do I do it? I don't know what to do." She said, "I went online, but I didn't understand what they were doing." I said, well, there's a game, there's a game store like 2 blocks away that has, it's a very nice game store. There's a game store 2 blocks away, and they have introduction to 5e classes once a month, where they have a class where everybody gets together and they roll up characters and they show you how to play 5e. And she was absolutely ecstatic and thrilled. She's like, oh, that sounds great. I'm going to, I'll make plans to go there and learn how to play D&D. So I haven't talked to her since then about that to see if she went there and learned how to play D&D. But that's the one thing that they still offer is that group experience of getting together, not just D&D, but everything. The fact that they have Warhammer days there, they have BattleTech, they have all these things where these group activities that, unless you're going to convention, the only other way to engage in these is through a club or through a game store.
Right. Well, I don't think Wizards of the Coast cares as much about physical in-your-house gaming. They're not going to make money off you gaming at your house with your own material if you've already bought the core books. They're not making money off you. But if you're playing on with D&D Beyond, you're subscribing to it, and if you're using their VTT and subscribing to it, they are going to get their subscriptions. In addition to the idea that they're going to want to get a cut of every licensed 1D&D product that's going to be going through their marketplace. I believe that's how they're going to do it. This is all ways for them to make these profits that they've promised. It's part of the reason why 4E failed. 4E was built on the idea that a significant amount of the profits were going to be built into this VTT, where you paid per, excuse my language, every fucking virtual mini, like 25 cents per orc, even if it was the same damn orc, because they had to pay per piece. And microtransactions was going to be the future of 4E. That never happened because that was doomed, that VTT. And that game system was built with the idea that it would use a VTT. And they were looking ahead. And they were probably way too far ahead.
And there's a huge backlash right now against microtransactions where, at first, it is a good way for especially video games have been using these for years to make money. And even in the video game community, because I have one foot in there, I do a lot of Xbox stuff. There's a huge backlash against any kind of anything that's seen as being a microtransaction or that's seen that gives you an advantage over somebody that doesn't want to pay for it. And like one of the mantras in online gaming is, yes, you can have microtransactions, but it has to be for stuff that doesn't actually affect the game, like costumes or the way a character looks, or artificial stuff that doesn't affect the actual game. Anything that affects the game, you have a chance of really pissing off your customer base. If you say, hey, we're going to offer this special gun that kills things even faster if you spend X amount of money, that's the kind of thing you don't do. Nobody does that because that there's no way to piss off.
You lose a lot of respect that way.
Yes,
I play first-person shooters like the Battlefield series.
Yeah,
and I'm familiar with part of that backlash. But I think one thing that those middleman consultants are not considering is by pivoting away from things that require capital, like Amazon, the trade bookstores, and stuff like that. They're leaving themselves vulnerable for replacement. I mean, the only thing they have to rely on once they pivot to a digital solution, digital sales environment, is the social network that's built around their game. And if they don't have if they don't have the logistics to put out entertaining IP, it can fall apart quite quickly for somebody else who does put up in NFP, because all they are, it's just, I can click on my browser right now and shop at a completely different store. I don't have to wait for it to be physically stocked or anything. I can just go and do it. And especially with, somebody out there could pull a Fazio against Wizard, offer a quality enough experience that's good enough for saying, we don't want to pay for every orc miniature and whatever. This ain't worth it. We just want to play some D&D.
Well, the thing with Paizo, and this is what I think a lot of people overlook with the reason why Paizo was accepted so quickly as the inheritor of proper D&D, because they were the licensed publishers for Dragon and Dungeon. They had built-in legitimacy with the system. So when they put out Pathfinder, fans of 3E were like, all right, well, my legacy, the legacy that I like playing, is in the hands of somebody who understands, who will respect the product. Now, if it was some other company that decided to make a Pathfinder clone, they aren't going to have that same legitimacy going into it. I'm not saying that people can't go out there and make a very good clone of 5e, and I've seen some earlier clones of 5e that have taken either ramped up the difficulty or toned down the complexity, and I think they're at least the ones that I've seen that have toned down the complexity or more my style, but they're not going to. You can take 5e away; these aren't going to suddenly bloom because none of them were licensed by Wizards of the Coast to take over their flagship titles for what, a decade? I mean, and already that showed you back then that Wizards of the Coast wasn't interested in making creative content. They weren't interested in doing things like that. That's the reason why you don't hear people quoting articles from the online Dragon magazine. Nobody cares what content's put into that, and it's free because they're not really content creators like Rob is. All right, like many of the third-party publishers are. That is the reason why 5e thrives. It doesn't thrive just because the system is a decently strong system. It thrives because of the content creators.
But isn't there people creating 5e content that are well respected both within the DMs Guild and outside of the DMs Guild? I mean, Kobold Press is pretty well respected. N-World seems to put.
Yeah, but
N-World has this
as its own system. They have their advanced their advanced 5e.
Right, but they obviously care about 5e and they really try to do.
They do, but nobody has that legacy that Paizo had, which was, hey, we published Dragon Magazine and Dungeon Magazine. We were official content, right? That's what it came down to. We were officially licensed, and now we had our license ended, and we're not ready to drop this ball. We want to keep running with it.
Well, maybe it'd be an OSR situation. I mean, OSR. Once we figured out how to publish pretty much 95% of the products that TSR did back in the day for one of the classic editions, but maybe what will happen is Wizards will start. So maybe in 3 years, Wizards is bleeding audience all over the place, but there isn't no Paizo. Instead, we have a bunch of, Kobold Press is bigger. N-World is bigger. Frog God Games is bigger. Goodman Games is bigger. But it's pretty much all a bunch of actors on the same level, playing on the same playing field, and they're not Pazio big or Wizard big, but they're doing better because everybody hates what Wizard is producing. It's just boring content.
Well, that's what's happening right now with Magic the Gathering. I want to give credit where credit's due. Steve Getty's son Corwin posted a long reply in a Facebook page comment today, and I can't find it. But his point was that what's going on with Magic cards right now is there's two people that buy Magic cards. There's resellers who make a lot of money when they resell the product, and there's people who actually play the game. Right now, they're pissing off both those people. They're pissing both of them off, and because of this, they're losing their audience. I think WotC has a chance to do that with D&D. They have a chance to piss everybody off, and that's not going to be good if they piss everybody off. They're going to piss off the old schoolers who, yes, maybe they don't play 5e, or maybe they play it every once in a while. I mean, look, Joe runs a 5e. Joe Lawyer runs a 5e game, right? I mean, there's some of you guys there's some of our guys that run 5e stuff.
I ran 2 5e campaigns.
Yeah, Rob runs 5e. They're taking a chance pissing off the old schoolers and the people who just came into the hobby, who have never had to experience something like that happened to Pathfinder, where, hey, guess what? All your Pathfinder 1.0 books aren't good anymore. We have Pathfinder 2.0 now. They've never had to experience that yet. Maybe they just started playing D&D 8 years ago, right when 5e started. They've never had to go through this that we've all had to go through when 1e turned to 2e and 2e to 3e and 3e to 4e, 4e to 5e. They didn't have to go through that yet. Are they going to be as understanding as people like we were? Although I don't know if we were. I mean, I stopped playing D&D at 2e. I've never played 3. I don't like 3e. I'm not interested. So I only play two pre-2000 versions of that. Are they going to decide, yeah, we're fine playing the version of 5e that we've been playing all these years? We don't really want to buy any more new stuff.
They have the tools to support it as is. You know, the SRD and the work of people who already work with 5e. You know, if you look at any of the 5e wiki for open content, there are like dozens of subclasses and stuff like that. So if they really wanted to, they can fix the problem themselves if they care to. If Wizards fumble the ball, of course.
John Miller says DM's Guild is just a brand owned by one bookshelf. I just want to address this. Remember, DM by itself is a trademark of Wizards of the Coast. You can't use it. So I believe, no inside information here, but I believe that DM's Guild is licensed to one bookshelf. And I would believe that DM's Guild could leave, but then if they weren't hosted by one bookshelf, they'd have to host it themselves and transfer everything over. I would think it's more likely that they would either want ownership and leave it hosted by one bookshelf, and one bookshelf takes a smaller cut. But that's certainly what led them to believe one D&D could be licensed, give them a cut of everything published under one D&D as long as it was in their marketplace. Digital world is where they are at, and they are not worried about your brick and mortar stores. They really don't care if you're playing at home or digitally, so long as you're using all their digital work.
And then by the way, they pretty much, that's one thing that Eric and I spotted the first thing when this announcement came out. They pretty much already told FLGS, Friend Local Game Store, to get lost. They said that right in there. They said, yeah, we'll talk to you guys later about how this is going to impact you. And they really didn't address it and don't really care. And so they've already pretty much said that this is they're going all in on this market, which is the market's digital. I want to bring up something else too. Is when people learn to play D&D, they typically learn from somebody who has played before and teaches them. Yes, we picked up the books and learned ourselves because we didn't have anybody to teach us back in the day. But nowadays, people typically, they've played an earlier version, or they find somebody that's already played something. So I'm a person. I'm like the girl in the waitress I talked to. If she wants to learn to play D&D, let's say I play 5e D&D, I'm going to teach her how to play 5e. I'm not going to tell her we'll wait around for D&D Beyond to come out, or D&D 1 or whatever. I'm going to teach her the 5e that I know, which is the original 5e. Is she going to make that? Is she, who's probably a casual player, is she going to make that switch when D&D Beyond comes? Of course she's not. She doesn't care. She the reason she's not doing online to begin with is she wanted to meet people in person and play in person. You know, and so it's like every other version of D&D that's come out, it's going to fracture the base. Every single new edition's done that. It's the same story over and over again. It's fractured the base every time. I remember when 4E came out, that fractured the base.
Right, and the only difference now is this is the largest base,
right, that's ever been.
And if they, at first, when they were talking about what to do about the feature 5e for like 2 years ago, I thought they were going to do the right thing. Just, come out with a new set of core book that's basically 5e and with a new trade dress, and but the system is still the system, and but this, what I've seen from their one D&D playtest, it's just, I mean, they've been through it. It's not like this stuff is hidden and hard to find or hard to research. They know what happens.
Or do they, Rob? That's the whole thing is, do they really? I mean, look, you and I do, and Eric does, because we've been around. We've seen this happen over and over again. I don't know if a lot of these people are lifers. I think they pop in, they run it for a while. They think the sun moon sets on them, and then 5 years from now they'll be working at a barista at a coffee bar. I don't know. I don't know if these people do see that.
You got a point. There's new people who breathe for every Elon Musk in the space business. there's a dozen people who got in. There's like a dozen. It's littered with a dozen companies that thought they knew what they're doing, but overlooked something important. That the rocket company crashed and burned. And
Mr. Gunn makes a very good point, and I think we've mentioned this in the past, but not tonight. They, meaning Wizards of the Coast / Hasbro, hired Microsoft, Boffins, all right, to help them get there. They hired people from the Microsoft gaming side and the Microsoft Office side, and these are where online markets are important, subscriptions are important because they're evergreen, right?
Right, everything.
When I was but a wee young man with my IBM PC, I could buy Microsoft Office and I owned it. Now I have to license it on a yearly basis, basically, because they want that evergreen money coming in.
Yeah.
That is what Wizards of the Coast wants to turn D&D into. They would do that. I mean, to some extent, Magic the Gathering is already there because they're always buying
every new edition comes out.
Everybody's got to be a completist and like, I got to get every card for this set. But they want to do that with D&D, and D&D isn't by its nature collectible, especially today. It's not like you're getting a real limited edition of anything coming out in D&D. Everything's mass produced. And there's no rare D&D books being put out there for you to collect. But if they can get a piece of every third-party product, if they can get the market share of VTTs, and don't trust me, they're not going to give you a one-time fee like Fantasy Grounds to subscribe to your VTT. It's going to be a nominal monthly fee on top of your nominal fee for D&D Beyond, because it's evergreen. This is what, and they can lose customers so long as they build up subscriptions.
The comic book industry for years operated on the thought that every 7 years the comic book industry turns over. What they meant by that is back in the old days, kids would start reading comics about 7 or 8. They read to about 15 or 16. They'd discover girls. They'd leave. And so they would repeat the same the plots over and over again. Dr. Doom would come back and fight the Fantastic Four. This is every 7 years they'd roll their audience over. They didn't care about their older audience until recently. Then they realized the older audience actually has money, and that's when stores opened up that just dealt comic books. Comic books went from being sold in 7-Elevens and supermarkets to going to stores. The video game industry operates by a principle like this. Theirs is 3 years. They believe that the industry turned over 3 years. If you're playing a game longer than 3 years, they don't care about you. They figure they've sucked every bit of money out of you that they need. So if you're playing Call of Duty or PUBG or Fallout or whatever, after you played 3 years, they don't care about you anymore. They want, like Eric says, they're looking for the evergreen markets. What do you do? I think that's a terrible marketing idea for D&D because I understand it. Like Eric says, if you look at something like Microsoft, that's what they're good at and what they do, but that's not D&D.
No, see, they're relying on the VT. It's full gold because it's the same reason why, despite their excellent work, Dwarven Forge hasn't taken over the hobby. It's for running a hobby that you run in an afternoon or an evening once a week is overkill. So therefore, it's a small niche of a larger hobby. And the VTT, the 3D VTT, it's the same way. It's going to be a small niche, and then it has the side of the Dwarven Forge has the same problem is by the medium itself is far more limiting than what you can do with a mixed mode of theater of the mind and dry erase and some Dwarven Forge. It's far more limiting.
But Rob, here's the thing. Right now, they're already experimenting with their physical digital bundle. Right now, they don't have a VTT. So your physical digital bundle is your physical book and your 2-week pre-release on D&D Beyond, so you can get your digital content ahead of time. When the VTT comes out, I can guarantee you that the VTT content is going to be included in that bundle. And whether you were a VTT player or not, you're going to have access to it. So now you're going to want to check out the VTT. there is a built-in market to that. And once you're on the VTT, then you're like, oh well, I need to subscribe. I'm not going to say that it's going to become their main moneymaker. I will say that they are setting itself into position to entice people onto the VTT because they want you to order from Wizards of the Coast so you get their physical and digital bundle. It's like bricks and mortar, but we're not going to go to your brick and mortar store to get it because they don't care about your.
There's no more middleman. Yeah, the middleman's gone. You're going through us on everything now.
You know, you're not going to. I'm not going to say they're not going to sell wholesale. They certainly will. They're going to sell to Amazon, and you can go to Amazon if you have no interest in the digital product, and you don't mind getting it later than they're going to ship. Amazon's not going to get early shipments anymore. Amazon will probably get it a week later. For some people, that's make or break. Everybody wants to be able to talk about it right away. But the Amazon and Walmart.com will get their share, but it's not going to be as deeply discounted as you see it now. I can guarantee you that because they're not going to see that as it's a marketing move only. It's not where they're going to make their profits. They want the majority of sales to come through them directly. Leave out the middleman. Leave out anything that resembles middleman pricing. Because come on, we got to keep more for ourselves. Remember, Hasbro is the same company that said "fuck Kickstarter, we'll do our own," and it did it successfully. So they're not looking to share the profits.
They were successful because people wanted to buy the product they were offering.
Right. I could see they haven't done it yet, but at some point there's going to be a Wizards of the Coast offering that's going to be on Hasbro's Kickstarter version, and let's see how they hype it. They haven't done it yet, but it might not be game material. It might be a miniature terrain game with dragons and shit that's only limited available through Hasbro Direct on our crowdfund. But they're going to try it because this is again something they keep the profits on. They don't have to split them up with.
By the way, that's exactly.
Sorry, go
that's
on,
exactly how they're going to sell it. They're going to call it dragons and shit.
Dragons and shit. There we go. I got my dragons and shit, yo.
You want some dragons and shit? Come to the white place.
Well, what my point is receiving the VTT module is not an equivalent good to receiving the digital PDF or the PDF of the product. They're two distinct way. They're two distinct, but
it's there to entice you. You might listen. You bought it. It's the only way you can buy the bundle. If you want to get the D&D Beyond material, it's going to come with the VTT material. I can guarantee.
Well, I agree, but I'm saying the VTT. It's like, okay, let's go back 10 or 15 years when everybody was swearing that organized play was the way this hobby was played. Mm-hmm. So what did Wizards do? They doubled down on organized play with 4E. They made things work. Even the products that we could buy for our home campaign work like it does in organized play with 4E. Big battle, big set piece battle, adventures that are a little bit of role playing and a combat encounter, a little bit of role playing, combat encounter. Then you wrap things up. And that tanked. That utterly tanked because as it turned out, that's not how most people play the hobby. And that's what I predict for the VTT.
Well, I'm not saying it's not going to tank. Okay, history is doomed to repeat itself, as any historian will tell you. But you've got new consultants in, and you can already tell by how they are stacking the deck at Wizards of the Coast that they are stacking the deck for digital subscription model services. And, and at a higher level, they want to do physical and digital bundles and entice you by giving you content 2 weeks earlier than physical release. This is all to keep greater profits in there. And if they lose half their players, and yet profits are up 25% because they're keeping a greater percentage of the bottom line, they don't care if they
okay, so let's say that they lose half their players. So where do those other half of the players go?
They still play, but here that's what I was gonna say, Rob.
Right.
They're not, the reason they're not upset is those players are still playing D&D. They're just not, they're playing 3E, they're playing 2E, they're playing 5E, they're playing original 5E or classic 5E, whatever you call it. They're still playing their game. So, and I think in their twisted worldview, it's a zero, that they're not losing anything. All these people are still playing D&D, and you know what? They can still sell reprints of D&D material, which they're doing now. Matter of fact, they could ramp that up and make it even bigger and better. There's
Only
lots
if
of
they
things.
have the staff to pull it off.
That's a good question, and I don't think it's just the fact they don't have the staff pulled. I don't think they have people that know what the fuck they're doing to pull it off. And so, yeah, that's a tough one right there. I really don't know.
Oh, that's an issue, but we're just talking raw manpower to throw. I'm talking raw manpower to throw at, even to make a half-ass attempt at it. It doesn't seem like they have the manpower, on the creative side, to do any of these lofty goals. So
not only that, but
leads me back to thinking that they're going to do an Apple App Store. They're going to build a platform they think that people will want to come. And
you know what some of their best-selling products were the last 10 years? Some of their best-selling products were the D&D reprint books, the nice hardcover reprints of Dungeon Masters Guide, Player's Handbook, Unearthed Arcana, the
Flavor series. Oh,
yeah, the S series and the A series. Those are some of the best received and best selling products the last 10 years. Why don't they do that more? It would sell like hotcakes.
No, not anymore. But we already know slavers would have to get. Slavers. The rewrite on slavers would have to be just too huge. Besides the fact that you have to change the title, because you can't have that anymore in a modern role-playing game release.
Are you sure? I mean, the slavers are clearly depicted as a bad guy.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, Rob.
Paizo and Wizards of the Coast are both declared.
No more slavery.
No more slavery in any storyline. It doesn't exist. You can't. Sorry. It's a verboten word.
It doesn't matter if they're bad guys or not. You can't do it. But I'm just saying is that there's old school products like they could produce in a prestige format like that and make a lot of money, and that's just not a direction they've wanted to go the last 10 years, which is stupid because, like I said, those are some of the best selling books they ever did, or the reprint books. But I think in a way, what I was saying before, Wizard, I think Wizard thinks they can have their cake and eat it too, because they think, well, if we lose half our audience, those other half are probably still playing our games. So if we want to publish something at a later date that's going to appeal to them, they're going to buy it. Because look, as much as I hate WotC and I don't buy WotC products and I detest WotC, if they announce tomorrow they're coming out with the prestige version of the D series with Q1, I'd buy it. I'd buy all the Goodman Games big, really thick book reprints. Those are great. They do a great job with those. I would buy that because I'm nostalgic. I'm a guy, stuck on nostalgia.
I mentioned this on another, I think another live stream, but we forget that AD&D 1E books were still being published well into second edition.
Yes.
I mean, you could still buy your core books for 1E as a newly printed book that it's sitting in a warehouse that just came off the presses as you're sitting there with your monstrous compendium with the pages falling out and going, why the hell do I have this thing in a binder that reminds me of school? And instead,
I'm sorry, I'm a fan of the binder.
I know you are.
I mean,
Rob,
you can't see it, but I have a whole binder.
I'm not picking on you for that one. Some of us were not a fan of it. But the thing is, I could have gone back and probably bought a new printing that would still have that new book smell at the bookstore of a 1E Munster manual, right? Because it was still selling, it was still making them money. And the TSR of old was all about how do we make more money. Wizards of the Coast is going to be the same way. They're going to be. I don't think they're going to be quick to support 5e on the theory that, well, we told everybody that 1D&D is effectively still 5e, even though it isn't. And we took away the OGL, but it is, but it isn't. We can't really support the old.
I'll look, here's where they're going to make money off me. Go to Amazon, put in D&D Classic Collection Monsters A through C. Have you seen this yet?
No.
Okay. I sent you the link, Eric. This is a Whiz Kids. These are monsters from the first edition Monster Manual, done exactly like the pictures from Tramp and DSL. I want.
All right,
I want. This is what I want. This is how they can still make money off of it.
Okay, I got confused when I first saw this. I got confused because it looked like something that came out a couple years back, but the announcement also made like it's something about to come out. Now, thank you for posting that. Now I know.
But I'm just saying is that this is how they can tell us to go fuck off, plus still get our money. They can tell us we don't care about you anymore. Oh, by the way, we're coming up this. We just sold the rights to Whiz Kids to these kick-ass sets based on the original Monster Manual. Yes, please take my money. I'll buy it. This is what, if they're smart, this is what they'll do. This is what they'll do the next 4 or 5 years while we're saying how much we hate 5e and D&D Beyond and we're never going to play anymore. If they come up with these nostalgia products like this, they can still get our money.
Wow.
Yeah, you're gonna, man. If it had 20 miniatures in there, I would consider.
The price point's a little rough. It is a little rough because you're only getting what, 10?
8.
Yeah, for 8.
So you're asking me to pay $12.50 for miniatures that are clearly
where's my centaur? Where the centaur's on the cover, and he's a C word. Wow, I just said that. He's a C word, and he's not one of the minis available.
Yeah, but look at that kick-ass beholder and the chimera and the bullet. Really, there's some. I mean, those are some great. But I'm just saying is this is an example of I think what they could do to maintain the to still suck money off guys like us, and then but also telling us go play someplace else. We don't really care about you anymore. Now there's always a chance. I mean, look, like I said, hubris has destroyed many an empire. There's always somebody could come up with something better, and they come out with it, and it starts kicking WotC's D&D all over the place. Especially if they stop supporting their pen and pencil play and tabletop gaming play.
Or it could be a situation where it totally fractures forever, and now you have a bunch of medium-sized players on the top tier. It could be you guys. You guys got the organization and the capital to play in the medium-sized tier, and that's what if WotC screws to pooch, I think there's a good chance there's never a number one in the sense that dominating 75% of the market share ever again. That's my prediction. But understand that's not much higher than predicting that some well-heeled existing 5e publisher will take over the number one spot.
Zach makes a funny. Zach says they hate the fans they actually have, which is not. I don't totally agree with Zach, but I don't think he's totally wrong. And what I'm saying is that I don't think they hate us. I don't think they care. I don't think they care about the fans they already have. They're looking for as Rob and you, and we've all talked about tonight. They're looking for the people who are willing to put money down on to do online digital gaming. That they don't really care about us anymore.
Wait a minute. I have one aside. Somebody asked a question. If you're new to Harn, the new Harn hardback books are an awesome introduction.
Mm-hmm.
They have a kingdom, a city, sometimes two cities, or a city and a castle, depending on the kingdom. And so if you've never been part of Harn, they're an excellent buy.
El makes a good point too that they doesn't want older gamers. That they don't. Once again, I don't think they care about older gamers either because we don't. But then again, older gamers have come out time and again said we don't want your new product. So why would they care about people that are not buying their new product?
Right.
But I also think that this is something that whether they hate us or don't like us or not, we're still playing D&D. Yeah, I'll show that again, Rob. I want to look at that.
Okay, I got.
Oh yeah, because the green screen. Yeah, they look wonderful. I've seen those. They look incredible.
So this has the kingdom of Meldorin.
And Harn, for my money, has some of the best castles of any fantasy role playing game there is. I mean, their castles are incredible.
Now, the earliest Harn products were known for being incredibly terse and packing a lot. I mean, they presented an entire city in 12 pages, but the newer ones, they expanded it, but in a good way. Now they talk more about the people in the city, but entry is still pretty terse compared to. I love my Greyhawk, and I respect Forgotten Realm, but sometimes they write a freaking short story or a novel about something that should have had a paragraph. You know.
Yeah, but you don't. And another thing, though, is too. I mean, considering what a clown show that company is, do you really want them paying a lot of attention to us first edition gamers? And look, if they were just going to reprint, stuff and not edit it or issue errata or just do something like that monster set, I'm fine with them. The problem is I don't want them anywhere near my D&D, and I really don't. I don't want to. They could come out.
I missed something. Who you're talking about? You don't want near your D&D?
WotC. I don't want WotC. I don't want them near us anyway. So I'd rather they don't pay attention to us and don't like older gamers. I'd rather they pay no attention to older gamers. I don't want them around us. I don't want them fucking up the product that they already published. I don't want them going into, I1 Forbidden City and messing with that. Oh, we're going to issue a bunch of errata because we didn't like this. There's slaves in here. I don't want them doing that. So I don't. Well, really
here's the thing: does it really matter now? I mean, we're already facing an uphill battle to promote and even just to share what we make. If we don't try to sell it, but just share it, it's always an uphill battle. Because people, while we have an advantage over somebody coming up with, say, a new 3D6 system that has, because we are rooted in something that a lot of people loved back in the day, but if WotC comes in, it's not going to change our equation. I mean, we still have to go and win our customers one at a time, just like we have been for the past 15 years.
Well, not even that either. I mean, look, if you love BX D&D, you're going to love OSE because that's what OSE is. OSE is BX D&D with the new package. And so if you lament the fact that WotC's not doing anything with BX, who fucking cares?
Well, no,
OSE's better. It's better than BX.
But what you're talking about is WotC coming out with BX again and either offering old or new product and screwing it up.
What I'm mostly talking about is the fans that bemoan the fact that WotC doesn't care about us anymore. I don't want them to care about us anymore. I want them to totally ignore us. I want them to move on and not care about older gamers. There's a lot of old gamers that I don't understand. They have this weird dichotomy that they don't want anything to do with WotC, and they don't want anything WotC to do with them, but then they get mad when WotC does woke stuff. Why would you care? Well, what do you care what WotC does to Dragonlance anymore, or to Spelljammer, or they don't want slavery? Why would you care about it anymore? And then that's what I don't understand, that gamers get it. That on one hand, leave me alone, leave my old game alone. I don't want you in here. On the other hand, I hate what you're doing now. Who cares what they're doing now? Just be glad they're staying away from our game or our stuff that they're not republishing our stuff.
So John Miller asked about what happened if WotC does the another purge again. It would be tragic. But it wouldn't stop the OSR because we don't depend on the old product. It would be just like what the Judges Guild fan are facing now. That because Judges Guild got Bob Bledsaw II did what he did. Now nobody's selling it. Everybody hears about the Wilderland, but nobody can get the Wilderlands unless they're willing to pay collector prices, and it's just tragic, the situation. But it doesn't stop people like from making stuff like this behind me. It doesn't stop James Mishler from doing what he's doing, or any of the people from putting out more.
And Rob, it's incredibly easy. And it's never been easier to find that stuff online, if you know what I mean.
Right. Well,
I can give me an hour and I'll find you every Judges Guild thing ever published online somewhere.
Here's the thing: the reason why the initial purge happened, and why, by the way, for those of you who actually had stuff that was purchased prior to the purge, I think you had like 48 hours once the purge got announced to download, and then you couldn't even access shit that you bought. It was gone from your library. All right, so that got a lot of people really pissed at Wizards of the Coast. But that was a knee-jerk reaction to the idea of what the fuck is a PDF, and everybody, oh my God, it's going to turn into piracy. When they came back and started selling on drive-through again, right? What did they realize almost immediately? That this was an evergreen product, that their old products were evergreen. Look at DM's Guild and see what some of their best sellers are, especially when there's a sale on this stuff. all these classics sell, and they sell a lot of times in print. I know because they get bought to my affiliate links. I can see. So even new gamers want to experience and check out the old rules in print. I don't see them going away, honestly, because it might not.
You can find them in places online. I mean, it's just
I know, but I'm just saying
easier than ever. No, look, you couldn't do that. But back when Judges Guild originally went out of print in the 80s, I had a hell of a time completing my collection until I was able to get on till the internet happened in the early 90s, and people started. And then I was able to complete my Judges Guild collection, but I couldn't find it anywhere. I looked everywhere, couldn't find it. Now with the internet, and the internet's made everything like that, things like that easier. You can find all that stuff. And if you can't find an illegal copy, you can find a legal copy. I mean, it's all out there. You can find it. I want to address something that Elle said here. We care what we think because we're sick and effing tired of being called racist for playing the game for 50 years. Ernie said that on an interview. Here's the deal. You can't care what they think because it doesn't matter. They're not going to change. They're never going to issue us an apology or do any kind of mea culpa. The only mea culpa we ever got in hand toward us was when they did issue those reprint books. That was the only time, and that was a blatant admission that 4E sucked or that 4E did not succeed. And we're going to try to do something to make money here. And we realize that you old fans will buy anything that's a reprint. That's the only time you're probably going to ever see them actually bend the knee to us. Other than that, they don't care, and they're going to keep calling you racist, and they're going to keep calling us racist. They don't care, and there's nothing we can do to change that. And I'm going to add this too. Ernie isn't helping that situation. He's never helped that situation. He's a terrible ambassador to our hobby. He's a horrible ambassador. He's about as good ambassador to our hobby as Bob Bledsaw was a good ambassador to Judges Guild, and we saw how that turned out. So Ernie's the reason partially why we're in this fix, because he's a horrible ambassador to the hobby. There's better ambassadors of this hobby. I mean, Luke's a better ambassador. I mean, go on and on. There's a lot of people that are better ambassadors of the hobby. Guys like Jeff Talanian. Almost anybody that Eric and I talk about all the time in reverend hushed tones are better ambassadors.
People that we bring on as guests. Yes. Greg Gillespie. Hey, Greg. Yes, I know. Random generator party. We might not have one at the day of Thanksgiving. You might have to wait till December. See, made a public announcement. We will have Greg on one time in December when it all works for us. I get hounded by this guy.
Are we talking about pushing it a week?
I don't know if we can push it a week because this isn't a 5 Thursday month. I don't think, or 5 Friday month. Because that would mean pushing back.
If we push it a week, it is in December. So you are correct.
Yeah, so we probably have to skip. Or we could just see who's available and might just have a show anyway. I'm probably going to be around. I'm not doing Black Friday shopping from anywhere but the privacy of my own home.
I was going to say, they only have power over you when you give them that power. And here's the deal. Like, I can't read comic books anymore. I stopped. I have a huge comic collection. I've been reading comics steadily since the 70s up until about 10 years ago when I had to stop because I didn't like what was going on with comics. There's nothing I can do about it. They didn't care. I left. I haven't bought a new comic 10 years. They don't care. They haven't come to me and said, Mike, please buy some new stuff. They don't care anymore. So you have to.
Well, here's the thing. See, you're hampered by the capital cost of producing a comic book, the time that takes you can't even encourage somebody because the IP, that you can't make any stories about the IP you like because none of it's public domain. But with the OSR, we're in a unique situation that the foundations of everything we do is for free for anybody to use. That means we're going to
great about it. That's what's
we're going to have some bad actors using it, but we have a lot of more great people using it. And there's guys like me who, I'm going to make all this what you see behind me open content. To me, I chalking it up to it's just more advertising for what I do. But
look, if you care about gaming and you don't like what WotC does, go out and buy all of Greg Gillespie's Mega Dungeons. Go out, buy all of Rob Conley's just kick-ass stuff. Buy Black Marsh. Buy his stuff. Buy stuff by people who enjoy putting out old school stuff, and they actually
Frog
want
God.
you as an
Buy
audience.
Frog God
Frog God
Games
Games.
stuff.
Go
I
buy
buy
Frog
Eric's
God's
stuff.
OSR line. Yes, go buy Eric's stuff. Go buy from people who respect and the hobby. And as you said, yes, there are some comic creators that have come out and that are publishing stuff that people like, that are more, old schoolish. But the problem is, as Rob said, they can't use old characters. They can't publish Spider-Man. They can't publish Superman. So you just have to sit back and grit your teeth and watch them shit all over Superman, shit all over Spider-Man, and just absolutely destroy these characters. But gaming, we have an outlet. There's a way to get past that. I mean, you can do your own thing.
And the nice thing, this is 2022, not 2008 or 2012. We have people, some of them are listening right now, or that proven that they can make popular, fun content for the ages. And we have legs now. We have a proven track record, so we can build our own legacy, and we can share that, and however much or little as we want, but it's there for everybody.
I guarantee you. Here, and this is the best part. There will still, in 20 years from now, there's still going to be people rolling up a party to go through Village of Hamlet, and all these ass-kissing, joking, jokester weirdos that work for WotC now will be doing something else. They'll be working low-level Hollywood, or they'll be writing a book, or they'll be, who knows? They'll be, molesting a goat. I don't know, but people will still be playing the classics 20 years from now.
Yeah, but I'm saying we made our own classics as well.
Yes, or they'll be playing Barrow Maze, or they'll be playing Black Marsh, and nobody's going to care about these people.
That is a solid module that I see cropped up from time to time.
It's a good module, very good module. That didn't make our OSR thing, and I forgot.
We're gonna have to do one, like, I don't know, quarterly or every
yeah, the Ruins of Vermont. I found that the other day. I'd forgotten all about that. That is actually a really, really good module, and I'd forgotten about that. So, and I had a few people bring some other things up to me that I'd forgotten about too on the show.
Mike, 20 years from now, if it isn't the three of us, it's going to be some other group of talking heads on your computer screen, probably in like VR, 3D. It's going to be really cool, and we're going to be talking the same shit about D&D Scum, or whatever they're going to call the next version, and they're going to be arguing the same points and be like going, you remember back in the day when one D&D was the one game to rule them all, now it's the one game to fuck you all? We're going to be saying the same shit. Because
I'm gonna disagree with you here, Al. It's not the problem isn't gays. The problem is idiot people. Some happen to be gay, but it's not gays. This is not a gay conspiracy to destroy D&D.
No,
but I know plenty of gay people that play D&D. Yes, Jeremy Crawford's an idiot, and he happens to be gay. Oh well, he is, and but no, it's not a worldwide conspiracy. It's just people that get. Like I said, hubris destroys empires. They had power, and now they're using the power in a dumb way. They think they can reshape D&D, and the problem is we're all still here. We haven't disappeared. We're not going anywhere. They can do whatever they like with the current version of D&D, and that's great. And you can still go to convention. And that's one thing I was going to bring up earlier when you guys were talking. Is that the great thing about conventions is stuff like. All this VTT stuff, it doesn't play well at convention. What are you going to do at a convention? You can't play this stuff at conventions.
No.
There's still going to be, when you go to a convention, it's still going to be go to a room, sit down, roll dice, talk to people, hang out. That's going to be 4 or 5 days of that. Conventions aren't going anywhere. Conventions are more popular than ever since the pandemic ended.
Gee, why stop at convention? What about your home games too? That's why you're making my point for me when I said earlier that Wizards my prediction for Wizards VTT effort, that it's going to sell, it's going to make them money, but it's going to be as popular as Dwarven Forge is now. No more, no less. It's going to be a niche of our hobby niche. Because exactly for the reason that you're saying for convention, but now expand that to your home games, expand that to going down the game store to your friends every week. Expand out all the opportunities that we ad hoc stuff that the VTT said it does not lend itself well for.
But here's the thing that we are forgetting, and we are forgetting this because of our position in the hobby. We're wired in. We're on top of everything. We know people in the hobby. We know people maybe at Wizards of the Coast or other publishers. We know the movers and the shakers, and to some extent, we're involved in that. So we're wired in. The vast majority of gamers are not wired in. So
Mhm.
the idea of Wizards of the Coast trying to get people to buy these bundles is to make people wired in, but not wired into the hobby. They want them to be wired into D&D and think of D&D as the hobby. That's going to be, I think, an actual weakness because the number of options available for everybody else to play, whether it's old school, whether it's going to be Pathfinder, whether it's going to be old 5e or Call of Cthulhu or some latest remake of Rollmaster or whatever it's going to be, Pony Finder. I don't care. People are gonna find it, and then when they find it, it's gonna be like, I thought it was just D&D because that's what Wizards of the Coast told me. Wizards of the Coast wants that control, and honestly, they would love to see the rest of the hobby shrink as they grow or even stay. They just want to grow their share, and if that means the rest of the hobby shrinking, so much the better. I don't see it shrinking. I see when they go to 1D&D, just like with every other edition, they're going to peel off a percentage of their player base who's going to go essentially, F you. I am not going to spend more money on more core books. I have too much invested in this. And kind of like Pathfinder, I thought you said you guys weren't going to change systems, but you're changing systems and you're saying it's backwards compatible, but it really doesn't seem to be all that backwards compatible.
It wasn't, yes, and it cost. And I have $1,000 worth of books here. Guess what? My group and I are going to still play my $1,000 worth of books. You can go jump. Gun said that. Are you sure my convention attendance is up, but not where it was before? I'm going to disagree with you. Gamehole had more people than they ever had this year. I'm betting that Gary Con makes a huge comeback next year. I know that North Texas will probably be maxed out next year. We've already sold probably more tickets earlier than we ever have. Long Con had more people this year. That's a small con. They had more people they've ever had. I think it's coming back in a strong way. It's good. Yes, it took a few years, and yes, we're in the middle of a semi-recession, whatever. So it's hard for people to drop $100 on a convention. But I think we're almost back to where we were when it comes to convention attendance. And the only thing keeping it from there is just the fact that we're still suffering post-pandemic letdown. I mean, that's a big part of it.
Yeah. So I'll make the point. The VTT will wipe out Fantasy Grounds, Roll20, etc. So Hasbro gets more of the pie. And by wiping out, it's not going to make these VTTs go away, but they're going to be regulated to non-D&D play, right? If you want to play 1D&D, you're probably not going to get a license on these. Not if they have their own VTT. And it doesn't mean that you can't play older editions or have somebody make a homebrewed 1D&D rule set, but you're not going to be getting it as it is now. I expect that those licenses are set to expire at the end of next year, and then that's going to be the end of it. And if you're going to be playing D&D on a VTT for 1D&D, you're going to get to play on built on the Unreal Engine, which will probably mean that you'll have so much detail that you won't know what to actually look at, and I'll be playing a video game and not playing a virtual tabletop. But we haven't really experienced it yet, so I'm talking a hyperbole. Hyperbole, depending on how you want to pronounce it.
Well, we can speculate on the trip. So if that turns out the case, Eric, then my prediction will be that they will spawn a new hobby, or they will shift their business from being a tabletop role-playing company to being a video game company, and all of a sudden they find themselves subject to video game economic rather than tabletop market economics.
It's quite possible because again, remember the new heads at Wizards of the Coast came from Microsoft, including Microsoft Gaming, the Xbox. If you don't think that's going to influence what you see, I expected that Unreal Engine is going to be used for things like, oh, look at the orc go through his death throes, and the 3D animation as it goes down. And then the 17th time that happens, you'd be like this. All right, click. Get past that shit. All right, I've seen it a number of times. I don't care. Oh, good. Look at that. Look at that. Look at the dragon got hit. Look at the screen. Okay. I mean, how much? There's only so much you're going to be able to do with it, and they're going to want it to be, quote, amazingly beautiful to look at. You can almost quote that. But when in reality, what you're going to get is the same animation time and time again, ad nauseum, and it's going to wear off pretty quickly. And then you're going to go, I wish I was playing Roll20. It's going to happen.
Greg made a point I wanted to talk to real quick. He said that one D&D will drive players to OSR, no question. I think that it's very important in the next few years for the OSR to make a good showing in that regard, because there's some people that are not, as we're talking about, are not going to want to play VTTs. And so we need to make sure that, hey, if you don't want to play VTTs, look, you can play the game the way the game was meant to be played. It's fun. It's awesome. And I think it could be an OSR renaissance, but we have to be the ones that do that. It has to be done the right way. It has to be marketed the correct way. And I think the way to market it is say, this is the way the game's been played. It's fun. It's great. You get together with real people in a real room and hang out. It's awesome. And then that's how we have to market the game correctly to get people to want to play face-to-face gaming, old school gaming.
So I have a curveball. It just occurred to me. And it's only 35 hours. So when you guys hear this, you only have 35 hours to get there. But what about stuff like the Monty Python RPG? It's already up at $1.7 million.
I actually did a post on that. It looks, it was irresistible for me. I had to jump on it. So I was like,
what about people connecting? And isn't this run by the Necrotic Gnome people or somebody affiliated with that?
I don't think it was Necrotic Gnome.
Which one was it? Which one we talking
about? Monty Python RPG.
No. It's not the RPG. It's a medieval reenactment program.
Oh, okay.
Well, I know we're splitting hairs there.
How can you? How it can be? They include the coconuts now.
Oh yeah, that's right. I saw that.
If you buy the physical one of the physical rewards, you get a set of coconuts to roll your dice with.
Quest completion reward.
But that, as far as our discussion, it's not. I didn't bring it up as a distraction. I meant, though, these are people who obviously put some thought into what would make for a compelling Monty Python RPG. Even though we haven't seen the book, so we really don't know if they're going to stick the landing on this, but it's looking good. And, how's that going to factor in with whatever bullshit that Wizard pulls in the future? I mean, $1.5 million is...
That's right. It's Exalted Funeral, by the way. That's what we got here.
Yeah.
Exalted Funeral.
Yep.
But aren't they a smaller publisher?
They are. I always thought of them as as an indie publisher for indie publishers. So I thought they were usually publishing stuff for other indies, like smaller indies. They were like I don't know. I thought they were like a conglomerate, I guess, but not a conglomerate. But in any case, a centralized hub for other smaller publishers to get their stuff published and distributed. But yeah, that's doing well, and it's supposed to get in about a year. So let's see if that, how well that sits. Because that looks like it looks fun to read. I don't know how well it's going to play, but none of us.
I think it would take a certain type of DM, a referee, to run that game. But
yeah,
for those referee, I'm sure it's going to be an awesome experience.
It might be good for a con game. Everybody.
I can see it. I can see it being just a con staple.
Yep.
Cons are on the way out, man. It's all going to be VTT, baby. Forget cons. They're gone. They're out.
I think what's going to thrive are things that can, it's a hobby that can flip modes. That when VTT is a solution, you use the VTT, then you meet up at the con, and then you game with your local friends, whatever you have time for, and as long as you can freely flip flop between all of this, that's what's going to win out over the long run.
All right. So they also serve as a distributor. So I guess they distribute for Hyperborea. I don't know. By the way, I got my Hyperborea set, and looks amazing. I got to say this: whoever packed it did an amazing job packing it, and whoever at the post office decided that they needed to put, like, I don't know, a crane through my fucking box and then retape it because it was
Oh no.
So my 2 limited edition books, perfect. Actually, everything is perfect except for my standard edition player's book, which looked like somebody was hanging from the cover for a good 20 minutes. So the whole binding is ripped and torn. I don't blame whoever packed it. They packed it amazingly good. The post office has some amazing skills to get past like an AC -8, the way this thing was packed, to go in and actually get damage. So whoever at the post office did that, there's a big F you to you too. All right. I don't blame Jeff. Maybe that'll be a special Tenkar giveaway at Christmas. A giveaway a damaged book.
I've been out of town, and I'll be out of town for another 2 weeks. I got so many packages waiting for me at home. It's going to be like Christmas, man, when I get there finally. And I got the Necrotic Gnome, the OSE box sets. I got all those. I was a big backer of that project, and then I've got the Hyperborea stuff, which I can't wait to see. So I got a bunch of smaller stuff too. So I'm very excited about getting home and ripping all that stuff up and ripping all the boxes up and taking that stuff out.
Yeah, Mr. Gunn, you left out the part of the fist fight before you go out for beers in New York. A lot of times, they might not connect, but you get the fist up. And, like, all right. Maybe we should have a beer before we put one over my head. Maybe we should actually drink it first.
Someday when you have Tenkar Con, you can have a fist fight at the beginning of the con.
Won't be my local pub. My local pub is gone.
Oh no, that's right. Hey, did you find a new pub?
We found a new water. We went out last night. Pouring rain. I had my first Uber since.
And I'm so sorry I called you during that. I did not know you were in the Uber. You were just walking into the pub, and I called you. You loved me so much you had to answer the phone.
I did. I had to.
You really didn't have to answer the phone.
But no, it's another nice Irish pub. But this one doesn't have a kitchen, but there always seems to be food there anyway. Don't ask me how that works. It's like, the bartender. Hey, Eamon called me and told me that there's the remains of a 6-foot hero in the fridge. So if you want anything to eat, we got to. I haven't ordered food yet. Sounds good. Thank you for the free sandwich. All right, better than having to buy it. So and they have Hofbrau on tap. So I mean, what more could one want?
Oh, yeah, that's nice.
Yeah,
good day you found a pub.
Yeah, but I had to take an Uber to it, and I had to so you can take. We could take one of our local buses and just walk 2 blocks, but not in the driving rain. It's like I'm getting an Uber. It would have cost less than $10 if I actually put the right address in.
Oh,
well, speaking of fights, I mean, the next year's ShireCon is going to feature about. Prior to ShireCon, me and Joe are going to have it out with swords. So,
dear God,
we got to film this. This has to be
this is not going to work out well.
The pre-con get it on. So
this is not going to be good.
Well, thank you for that rounding that support for your support there. I'll remember that when the time
you're both going to be dead. I mean, you're both going to die. I don't want you both dead. So I mean, I'm looking forward to this. There's going to be an accident. It's going to happen, and you're both going to come back wearing eye patches or something. You're going to be.
Well, it's not real swords. It's going to be foam swords. Okay.
It doesn't matter. You guys will put each other's eyes out. It doesn't matter. You'll do something bad will happen. This is not good. Just sit there and play drinking games. There you go. Play a drinking game.
Play. I don't know, lawn darts. Oh, maybe not.
Yeah, lawn darts. That won't hurt anybody.
Yeah.
Nobody will be fine after that.
All right, sorry, I couldn't resist. Joe was going that they were spouting on about how there only can be one because he beat up his nephew and.
By the way, I had an argument with my brother about darts because his magic user like to carry darts, and so when I think of D&D darts, I think of lawn darts. They have to be that big to do 1 to 3 points of damage, right?
Yeah.
You're not talking about a little dart you throw the darts. No, you're talking about big old darts. He goes, so I'm looking at his character sheet. He has like 40 darts. I said, do you realize how big these things are? He goes, what, little darts? I said, no, they're like lawn darts. So we must have had a 3-hour argument that game session about how big darts were. This is the day before internet, so we couldn't look up stuff and look it up on Google or whatever. But yes, we had a gigantic dart argument one night, and I think we both had a couple of drinks. So that's probably.
I don't know. I mean, darts. When were darts introduced? AD&D 1E, and it just so happens that AD&D 1E listed out the physical size of the weapons. Well, let's see whether there were lawn darts or not.
They've got to be, because a dart's not going to do 1 to 3.
Well, if
you throw a dart at me, you're not going to kill me, and that's I probably only have 1 to 3.
Are you arguing with the DM, with Gary Gygax, the DM?
Yes, because he had some terrible stuff in the 1E book. It was awful, some awful stuff in there. Because he was trying to write a war game. He was trying to stick a war game in his RPG. He's trying to put a war game in his RPG.
All right,
there's some nice darts. Those are good stuff. Those look big. They look a little bigger than normal.
I could even see those the ones in the upper right hand corner. That would be 1 to 3 points of damage. It's doing the damage of a knife, right? If you're
talking about a throwing knife. Yeah, they're going to be at least big as a throwing knife.
Yeah. I would see lawn darts to be more like a D6 with a range of about 15 feet. Like,
not a dagger, but not just a knife in D&D does, I think, 1 to 2 points of damage, 1 to 3.
1 to 3.
A dart to do 1 to 3 has got to be at least as big as a knife, or as a dirk, a knife, or whatever they call a smaller dagger. It's got to be at least right in that range.
So there's a bunch of that little wrist thing is what I see for like. You pull it from. You have both your wrists lined up, so maybe that way you can have a total of like 12 darts on you, 6 on each wrist. But beyond that, nah.
40 darts is a lot, man.
You have to wear
he goes, well, they're like a bandolier. I go, does it go around your body 3 times? I mean, you're talking about walking like to say that one of my favorites of all time was the first time we played with this guy, or he'd never played D&D before. And somebody told him, like, you're a mage, you need Molotov cocktails because when you throw your one spell, you're done. Okay. So he's like, oh, okay, cool. How many can I carry? And they're like, I don't, whatever. I said, I don't, whatever you think's reasonable, because I'm thinking whatever. So he puts like 12 Molotov cocktails in his backpack, which is okay. It works out all right. Until the enemy mage hits him with the burning hand spell.
Big kaboom.
And I start rolling saving throws for the Molotov cocktails. And at a certain point, so many of them have set off. I said, it's just like the sun landed in this dungeon. And there's fire everywhere. There's smoke everywhere. You have to leave the dungeon now. So they had to retreat because it had such an explosion. He goes, can you raise me from the dead? I go, there's nothing left. There's nothing left of you. You had 12 Molotov cocktails in your backpack. But to his credit, he killed the enemy mage too, who was within 5 feet of to cast the burning hand spell. So he did take out all the enemy. But yes, sometimes you don't want to carry as much stuff as you can.
No.
Okay, so it doesn't give the dimension. Oh, it does. No, it doesn't. Damn it. It's blank. God. Okay, but there is one. That's not why. I for a moment I saw a length column and I had hopes it had listed dart, but no, it's freaking blank.
Of course it is.
But it does weigh 5 gold pieces, so it took 10 gold pieces per pound. So this is a half-pound object. So it's not definitely not one of those darts that you throw in the. Yeah, it's probably about the. That's
not a pub dart.
But it's heavy. You got to be heavier than a pair of scissors, though. Come on.
Is that a half pound?
No,
that's probably not a half pound. It's probably. No, I don't think it's a half pound. I don't know.
Okay, so I mean, it's going to be at least the size of that scissors, a cylinder that's the size of that scissors. So yeah, you are right to call out the player to say, "Are you carrying 40 of those?"
Wow.
I mean, the tips are going to have to be capped with leather or something. You're not going to be carrying around 40 little pointed objects.
It'd be a prickly situation. I'm making bad puns.
I'll have to bring a picture. I have a picture. This guy had way back when we first played, he had a character called Paladin Took. And I looked at his character one day and I started laughing. And I handed it to another friend of mine who's an artist. I said, could you draw me a picture of this character? He started laughing. This guy, he was a paladin. He had longsword, longbow, halberd. I mean, he drew a picture. This character's got like everything. And so we said, you realize you couldn't carry all this stuff? He's like, why? Well, it's not, the rules don't really say, it's just common sense. It's encumbrance.
Right.
You know, you can't carry a 10-foot pole, a halberd, a longsword, longbows. In
wait,
my case,
wait. What's the item list? You can't carry a what?
So here's what his character had on him: a longsword, a longbow, a halberd, a 10-foot pole, and he was wearing plate mail.
Okay, you could carry. Everybody get out their bingo cards, LARP. So you can carry one pole-like object and have 2 weapons on you before things get cluttered. You carry your bow or your halberd on your back, and you have 2 weapons on your belt. But that is as far as it goes.
Well, I always understood. So in my campaigns, you can't use a longbow underground because longbows are. Because when I took archery classes in college, because I wanted to take physical classes, I didn't want to do anything actually physical. I wanted to fire arrows. They were when you fire a longbow, you're firing up, and if there's an arch to it. And so you
don't have to fire a longbow. I would be worried more about the ceiling height.
Right, exactly.
Because if I'm at head height, a typical longbow would stick about a foot above your head.
Right.
So unless you have that clearance. But
I use, when you're in a dungeon, you have to use a crossbow in my campaigns because it's obviously it's going to fire straight out. Bows require that you fire up, and it's just not going to work in a dungeon. But like you said, also longbows are huge. Longbows are huge. I show pictures of people.
No. I said short bow.
Oh, short bow even. Okay, short bow. I'm talking about longbow.
You can use a short bow. That's 3 or 4 foot long.
Right.
And if
a longbow's no. There's no way you can use that.
But a crossbow, I would give it to hip bonus. Well, I do in my game, but there would be in my mind there would be a hip bonus using a crossbow in any confined space. It's just easier to use.
Well, they got crossbow got screwed because in my campaigns at least they do as much damage as regular bow. I don't understand the whole crossbow does 1 to 4 or I don't know. It's all made up anyway. But yeah, there's some things like you said you did LARPs, Rob, so you understand when you get these things out. Like have you ever actually held a 10-foot pole? You can't really bring a 10-foot pole in a dungeon. It doesn't make any sense.
No, you're not.
It's gigantic.
You're not. Look,
it's gigantic.
Back in '92, when it was like a year old in Western PA, yes, people tried to bring really long ass poles for pocket stuff. That quickly, by the second event, that got ditched. Now people had staves that went up to over your head,
like a 5-foot staff or whatever, a 4-foot staff.
6 foot's about as long, but nobody wanted to, because if you find yourself any cramp situation, all you could do with your staff is like this and maybe like that, but you couldn't get the full range of motion like you could outdoors. And that was
look up a longbow and see how big they are. You can't even turn them sideways. And then, by the way, that's not how you fire a longbow. I took archery classes. Longbows. The reason a longbow's range is so long is because you're firing it almost straight up. You're doing an arch to it. You can't do an arch in a dungeon. Longbows just don't work in a dungeon. Not just
but you
size.
can shoot them. But when you have a target that's closer, you can shoot them straight.
If you're in a giant area underground, sure, but they're just huge. Longbows they're just huge. Look up a longbow. Look up how big they were.
I know how big. I have one hanging on.
I'm talking to L. I know you do, Rob. I'm talking to L here. There's saying they turn the longbow sideways.
But here's the thing:
fire it underground.
We didn't go into dungeons often because it's hard to set up in live action. But those of us who did, if we took a ranged weapon, we took something. We made sure we had a short bow, because I mean, it just you just don't want to be carrying long shit through confined quarters. We had an evening in a cave, an actual cave. Now it was like the lowest, the easiest grade of cave because we weren't that stupid, but still there were some tight corners. I went through this one section and I was covered with slime mud from forehead to this. It was nasty, and you just
caves in fantasy games never look like real caves, which real caves are just they're a pickle, man. You
don't even want to carry a shield.
No, they're awful. You could get stuck. You don't want to get stuck, traveling down a 4x4 hole, as you shimmy down there. It's just it's awful. Yeah, those things.
Oh, by the way, those of you who buy Harn stuff, look for the cave maps, and even if you don't use Harn directly, make sure you photocopy that cave map or get a screen image of it and use it as your battle map on your next cave. Your players will hate you because they use real cave geography, and you're gonna go you're gonna take your large shield through that.
Oh boy, yeah. Oh well, boy, I'm getting hammered in the comment section again, Eric, because I dared to bring realism into the dungeon. One of my favorites. And I still get in arguments with my group about this, and they do it just to piss me off. I know it. So in a 10x10 hall, there's a halfling and a dwarf up front, and they're fighting the two orcs in front of them. I inevitably get this from the thief character. Okay, can I sneak past them and go behind them? How?
Repeat
How?
that again?
You're in a 10x10 corridor. There's 4 creatures swinging weapons. How on earth are you sliding past them to get behind them? You can't do it. It's impossible.
Oh, I had a player rage quit on me, so I'm running I'm running over the exact same situation, not a 10-foot corridor, but so I'm running the 5e adventure Dungeon of the Mad Archmage, and there's just one room that is a big open area, a throne room with 4 pillars, a throne area, and off in the one corner is a door that leads to a smaller complex of rooms, and that's where the players were. And no, that was where the enemy. Trying to think of it. Yeah. Okay. So that's where the enemy was. So, and the enemy was standing at the door, watching over the whole throne area. And remember, I'm the guy who used detailed battle maps so to make this stuff crystal clear, because I'm hard of hearing even when using the earphones, as you guys noticed throughout the podcast. And also sometimes I slur my speech, so I just make it visually clear. So it's clear. It's an empty room, just 4 pillars. And the player wanted to make a stealth roll to sneak across this room in open sight. And I said, they will spot you. There is no cover. You don't have any kind of magical darkness. There's no cover for you. And he proceeded to argue me because in his day job, he was the lead programmer for a video game company, and later on, his friend that was there, who didn't rage quit, told me he takes things by game logic. That's all he thinks about. If the rules of the same game says it's a DC 15, and if you roll a 15, that's it, and that's the result, no matter what the real world logic is. And I said, that's not how it works. And I'm aware of people trying to pull game logic on me. So before I start a campaign and they play, I establish, look, you look at things as if you were there at the character. So whatever the game rules say, that is the first thing you do. And if the game rules produces a result that contradicts what you see, I'm going to go with what you see over what the game rules say. And this was the first time it came to a head-to-head for the player.
I was very lucky. My youngest brother was the pickiest rules lawyer of all time. I was able to, believe me, by the time I was 25 years old, I was ready for anybody. There's nobody that could pull anything on me that I couldn't say, nope, that doesn't happen because this, and this. I'm not dealing with it. I dealt with it with my youngest brother for years. We would have 2 and 3 hour long arguments about the dart stuff, about, well, what about this? Well, why is this in the rules? I don't know what. Gary was drunk that day. I don't know why it's in the rules. It doesn't make any sense. Well, it's in the rules though. Yeah, but it doesn't make any sense. And I'm the DM, and so it's not in there. You just don't like fun. You're not a fun guy, whatever. So, but yeah, my second favorite is the thief trying to sneak past the fighting warriors in the 10-foot wide hallway as everybody's swinging long swords and scimitars and stuff. My other one is where he wants to climb up the wall, get on the ceiling, and climb the ceiling around because he can climb walls past the fighting and drop down below him. I go, they're going to see you. Well, no, they're not because they're involved in a combat. You're right fucking there on the ceiling like a bird crawling. I mean, you're not invisible. They can see you on the ceiling. There's no surprise. And besides, you can't crawl on the ceiling like that. That's not what climbing walls means. It doesn't mean climb like a spider across there. It means you climb up a wall. Oh, thief characters think they get away with so much. Everything's a surprise backstab. And I'm like, no, it's not. They know he sees you there. He saw you walk around behind him. That's not surprise anymore. It's only surprise when they don't see you.
Now, what I do, especially back when I ran a lot of GURPS campaign, which had a lot of rules, but I will say GURPS rule generally 9 times out of 10 made freaking sense. Compare, when it lines up with what happens in the real world. That's one of the reasons I like the system. So, but we all have our life experience, and we don't know everything there is to know. So sometimes we do things that our character was under a mistaken impression and stuff. And when that happens, when it's clear that the player is not getting something they should, I would say, "Hold, do you understand this situation? This is what your character does. Does this change your decision about what you're about to do?" So I give them that chance to do a take back and reconsider their action. And I'll do that the first couple of times if the player's new to my campaign. But if they've been there for 2 or 3 years playing my game, I don't cut them any slack. But at the beginning, I don't think it's realistic for players to read my mind about how to do that. So I instead of being solely a referee, I'm also in a coach mode to coach you how things work in the world.
I had to coach a character once just started out. He's a really good role player now, but when he first started, he wanted to run away from everything. And I finally asked him, so their first level, and every combat they get to, he goes, I run away. And everybody else is fighting. And so I asked him, why are you running away? He goes, well, I'm just acting like my character really act, because he was playing this peasant who was going to be whatever. Anyway, he was trying to role play his character. I go, that's just not very heroic, though, and you're never going to get experience if you run out the dungeon door. Now, sometimes running away is a great strategy, but not when the rest of your party stays behind to fight, 6 orcs, and you're hauling ass out the door. So everybody finally had to explain to him, yes, you play your character, but you also you're playing a heroic version of you, not you. He goes, well, that's what I would do. If I saw a bunch of orcs in the dungeon, I'd run out the back door. I said, well, yeah, but you're playing a character that hopefully doesn't want to be called a coward. But right. It was hilarious. The first few combats, he just I'm running, I'm out. I'm like, everybody's like, what? Like, yes, I'm out of here. I saw these scary orcs and I'm gone. And about the third time it happens, everybody's like, okay, what's going on here? This is working out very good. But it was funny. I'm sorry, Eric. I just noticed we went 2.5 hours.
No.
Because Rob wouldn't stop talking. Yeah,
I know.
Rob just kept talking.
Rob, you are like the best non-scheduled, semi-scheduled guest we've had. So
okay,
this is awesome.
Thank you. But I'm gonna so hear it on the chat.
Like,
I'm sure this conversation will probably be carried over to Friday too at some point. Next Friday.
Not this Friday, but
not this Friday. Because I'm sure Joe and Matt and all and Rob and everybody.
Joe's got holiday stuff to do. It's Thanksgiving Day weekend.
Maybe a few weeks from now, then we may have more news by then. I don't know.
We may still have. I'm not saying we won't have a live stream in a week and a day, but it may not be the full team. We may be having a skeleton crew. We will have to see.
You know what? Guess what, Eric? I'm stuck on the island with shitty weather. I'm
Oh,
always
okay.
here. So
Tonight,
if you need,
playing the
if you have
role
one
of
night
Joe the lawyer.
if you're low one
other
night,
than-
I may have to pop in because I don't know what I'll be doing. Probably my wife and I are watching a lot of Netflix this week. I have a feeling because of the weather being so bad. So
All right, so folks, we're going to wrap this up. Huge thank you to Rob Conley. Rob was not
thank you,
scheduled.
Rob. Yes, Rob's great. We love Rob coming on.
James, we will have James Spahn on when the family allows him. He's got
Yes,
two youngins.
hope he's got 2 little babies just to take care of.
So,
But next week we have Zach Glazer, and the week after that we have Ben Barsh.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry. I'm just springing this on you. Yes,
Very nice.
Zach Glazer will come on next week and talk about Frog God products, and maybe we can talk about some other things like the OGL, like tonight he was talking.
Because as a publisher, we can get his.
Yeah, we can. And then the week after that, since our demographic is so old, we want to skew it a little young. We're going to have the great Ben Barsh and his hair will both be on.
So what you're telling us is so. I mean, if we bring in the hair, the hair might actually raise our demographics for the 18.
Oh yeah, the hair will get us. Garrick, the hair is going to get us chicks. Just having the hair on the show will have us chicks. Ben will be okay. Ben's all right.
Happily married.
I know, but it's always nice to have the chicks pining after you.
Just to have them log in and say hello is enough. That's like, oh, we got a woman in the audience, yay!
we got our one woman. We hit our limit. Yes,
folks. The usual spiel. I know you've heard it. I know Rob and Mike have heard it, but we are still in the midst of the endemic. Please use your common sense. You know what's going on in your neck of the woods. Act accordingly. You know your risk factors. Act accordingly. Other than that, be safe, be well. God bless. Roll those dice. Roll them well. I will be back again. Today's Wednesday. I got confused because Rob was on. So I will be back with another live stream on Friday, 8 p.m. Myself, Glenn Hallstrom. Tomorrow night, if you're on Discord, we do the Discord hangout at 9 p.m. The Tenkar Tavern Discord server. And there'll be some random video for tomorrow, maybe talking about 1D&D, the OGL, and whether shall it go. I have no idea.
It's just a still developing situation, so things
can
change.
That's just clickbait for me.
All right, folks. On that note,
Later.
Love
you. Love everybody. I hate you guys being mean to me.